Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Learned World Domination from Nezu? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. Chapter 11. A Broken Baby Bird. Summary. Meant to have this next chapter, but then oops, got possessed, wrote it anyway, that was the vibe. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Iguchi Shuichi wasn't sure how the hell he had gotten himself in this situation, to be entirely honest with you. I mean, he could trace it back, go through the events that led up to this moment, but wrapping his head around the fact that it had happened, even though he had lived it, was really hard. He had been at work as his 15-year-old lizard self, helping Recovery Girl with any patients, mostly reckless hero students, and getting taught. She seemed to like it, and they did do quite a bit of gossiping. It took Shuichi a bit to warm up to the sheer snark that came out of this old woman, but the first time he had cracked a joke, she had chuckled, so he considered it a win. He was also learning a lot, and no one was looking at him funny for having green scaly skin. Nezu had asked. Still, it was just as school was ending when the intercom buzzed and Nezu's voice came on. Mr. Iguchi, you have a call on line 2. He had no idea who could be calling him, or why Nezu was still calling him Mr., but he picked up the phone on the wall and hit the button for line 2. Hello, this is Iguchi Shuichi? Mr. Iguchi, are you free right now? Midoriya? Yeah, school just ended and I don't think we have any last-minute patients. He looked at Recovery Girl and she nodded, so I'm free, why? Have you ever treated a bird before? No kid, I'm barely a nurse, I'm not a vet. Okay, different question, do you know how to treat someone with a bird mutation? Like, broken feathers, maybe broken wings. Kid. Guessing that's a no then. You're 10, why are you swearing? Kaken. That made sense actually. Shuichi had only met the rest of the gang a few times, but Bakugo was explosive and violent in everything, including his language. Shuji was much more the teenager style, Shinso and Kuda a close second, since they were also both pretty quiet. But anyway, can you bring things to treat bruises and cuts? He looks pretty banged up even if we ignore the wings for now, not that we should let this go. Should I just bring Recovery Girl? No, he's too tired for her quirk. Okay, but what about just her general medical expertise? Can you put her on the phone for me? He wordless held out the phone to his boss and she ambled over with a raised eyebrow to take it. Yes, Izuku? He didn't hear Izuku's side of the conversation. Of course, the commission? But Izuku, have you done something illegal? Put Kuda on the phone, sweetie. Oh, then just put it on speakerphone so he can hear. There was a pause before she nodded to herself. Hello dear, is what Izuku said true? TCH, Izuku will want to send that information to Nezu, we can get it sorted. You can tell me more when I get there. She hung the phone back up and didn't even bother pretending as she looked directly into the camera. You've completely corrupted that boy, Nezu, but he's doing good things so I can't say I mind. We'll be out for the next few hours, and you might want to look at staff openings for young adults with little experience. Without waiting for the rat's reply, Shuichi knew Nezu heard all. She gathered up her house call bag and gestured him out the door. Have you ever gone on a house visit before, Iguchi? No ma'am. Are you sure you need me for this? She snorted. I suppose I don't, but it will be a good experience, and he did call you first. Shuichi nodded hesitantly. What was all that about birds? What was he getting himself into? It had started out pretty tame, in all honesty. As soon as Shinso became completely introduced to the group and saw how Izuku would fight anyone and everyone who discriminated against anyone for any reason, the boys who had thrown rocks at the cat had all found themselves expelled the next day and Hitoshi had never been happier. He was quick to bring in Kuda Kuji, a tall, shy, rock-looking boy and his first friend who spoke to animals more than people. But boy, was he fast at typing. Izuku figured that a life of not wanting to talk out loud made for alternative methods of communication. He signed with Shinso and Kaken, surprisingly, and Izuku immediately asked Nezu if they could add JSL to their lessons. He was delighted to comply, and Present Mike helped out, since he was fluent. His texting was almost as fast as talking would be, and sometimes he was faster than Izuku was at mumbling, which is a feat. But anyway, they had been playing games, heroes versus villains, and Izuku had asked if the birds would do recon for him, getting them intel on the villains' locations. Kuda had been more than happy to agree, and after that, Kuda's team always won on the information front. Put Izuku, Shuji, and Kuda together? Well, it was a done game. Then they started talking about how they had all met, and Shinso had gotten confused. Wait, Midoriya, you live on like the other side of the district. What were you doing over there? Izuku merely smiled. I like to walk around and see if there are people who need help. Also, it helps me practice my people skills. Oh, are you bad at talking to people? Hee, not those kind of people skills. Izuku hadn't elaborated, just smiled, but then Shinso turned to Shuji. What about you? You don't go to our school, so why were you only 5 minutes away? I'm actually in the district next door to you. Plus, I'm pretty fast, especially when Izuku calls for something. Need to make sure he's not doing anything reckless or terrifying. Hitoshi had just stared at Izuku, trying to parse the image of the boy in front of him with the word terrifying, but eventually brushed it off. No way, he was too small and innocent looking. Not a bad bone in this boy's body. Then again, he had gotten those boys expelled. At least, Hitoshi thought so. Kuda signed something and Shinso nodded. Kuda likes to use the birds to keep an eye on the strays that don't like to move, in case he can't make his rounds. Plus they warn him when JRKS are on the way. Kaken scoffed, leaning back on his hands. Just kill them. Cheiko rolled her eyes. Blasty, what did we say about murder? Wait for Zuku to approve. No. We said no murder, explodey. Unless you can get away with it. Kaken, Izuku chided, why murder someone when you could just? He made a hand motion and a face and everyone stared. When you could just what? You know. He did it again. Shuji shook his head. Izuku, no one knows what that means. The boy blinked. Oh well, my point still stands. Murder is just so messy. There are much better ways to ruin someone's life. Hitoshi changed his mind. Terrifying definitely fit. So Izuku asked Kuda if the birds could keep an eye on a few things for him, watch out for any human strays, like Mr. Iguchi had been, to find anyone who needed help. Of course, they wouldn't help everyone, they would have to be vetted first. Izuku wouldn't just help any random person on the street, he was 10, not stupid. One thing led to another, and suddenly Kuji found himself spying on the Hero Commission. They're kind of shady, Izuku muttered. I am 95% sure they're hiding something. Some cover-up about a top hero, probably. Maybe Best Jeanist actually killed someone and they have to cover it up because he's so popular. Then the birds had come back distressed and Kuji had to calm them down for 10 whole minutes before he could understand what they were saying. The commission were hurting a bird, they said, hurting them every day, really bad for a long time. Kuji wasn't a fan of humans in general with the exception of this weird group of 10-year-olds, but he really hated people who were cruel to animals. He texted Izuku about how he was going for some in-person recon, and got a thumbs up and a question for location. He wasn't expecting everyone to show up, dressed up like tourists. Hi Kuda. We're here to help. Bakugo had, of course, rolled his eyes and scoffed, saying he was only here to keep an eye on Zuku, but Kuji knew that the whole group was very easily swept up in Izuku and his schemes. No one else could forgive animal cruelty either. The birds flew down to him at his call and he got a basic general location of the window they were looking through to see this injured bird. They led the group of 6 10-year-olds to that side of the Hero Commission building. Izuku and Shuji, best at climbing and stealth, were helped above and beside the building by Cheiko, making them lightweight, and Shuji stretched out his limbs, forming an eye on the top end, to peek in the window that they could only see because of their height. Kuji watched him stiffen and Izuku tugged on the boy, wanting to look as well, no doubt to get it. Good layout of the area so he could form a plan. Kuji watched the green boy's smile freeze on his face and he became very, very still. Shuji lowered him again and Cheiko gently let them float down. Izuku was still smiling, but everyone knew it wasn't a happy one. Okay, I have a plan. Kuji rubbed his hands together nervously and signed, "How was the bird?" Izuku's empty gaze turned to him, smile never leaving his face. "Yeah, it's someone with a bird mutation quirk. From the brief bit I saw, they are training him to the point of death. I recognized some psychological tactics that lead me to believe he's being manipulated, and I don't have much knowledge of birds, but something tells me they were suppressing some of his traits." "Zuku, you were looking in the window for 2 seconds. And that was all I needed." Hitoshi clenched and unclenched his hands. "So, what are we going to do?" Izuku hummed, smile seeming a bit more real and a bit more predatory. "I'm so glad you asked." Sanjicho really did not like her job, in all honesty. Running the front desk at the Hero Commission was like getting run over by a car 3 times a day, and just after you get up, someone throws a rock at your head. At least the pay was good. Today was a day where she was getting run over 4 times. Honestly, the amount of people who called about a villain attack was ridiculous. They had local hero agencies, they were the ones to be called. The only thing to do in those cases was to ask them their location, then give them the number of the nearest agency. Really, they were the commission, not the heroes. Honestly, the name probably threw people off. They should rebrand, just so Cho didn't have to deal with it. When she got a call from a panicked girl, explosions in the background with a terrible cackle and some scattered and distant screams, she could already feel a headache coming on. "Miss, I'm going to need you to calm down and tell me your location. Do you know the closest hero agency?" This girl or woman was hysterical. Cho was getting nothing out of her anytime soon. Welp, Path 2, using government resources to trace the call and get the location that way. As she was running the software, someone came up to the desk and showed her their badge, as was standard. She didn't even spare them more than a glance. Tall, plastic card, check, check, before buzzing them in. She did not have time to deal with people coming back late from their lunch breaks. She had to find this phone call before people died and the Hero Commission was blamed. Tracing. The program put out an error and she cursed internally. "Miss, I really need you to give me something to work with, or I can't get the heroes to your location." The person just kept blubbering, something about a park, which was helpful except for the fact that there were parks everywhere, and the explosion villain in the background said something about Cheeks hurrying it up? Hamming it up? Wasn't sure. Sounded angry regardless. This was the worst job. She should probably quit. Shuji and Izuku walked in without a hitch, Shuji using his height to pose as a worker while the lady at the front desk was occupied with Cheiko and Kaken's phone call. Hitoshi and the birds were helping with the screams, and Izuku using his lack of height to just duck under the view from the desk. Was it illegal to mislead someone like this? Yeah, probably, but Izuku's phone was pretty much untraceable and they were torturing a teenager, so justified and probably not going to have consequences. He had already mentally mapped the general direction of where they had seen the red-winged boy, and Shuji was more than happy to make sure no one caught them, keeping extra eyes and ears out at all times. They had both gotten pretty quiet-footed, so no problems there. Slow and steady won the race. They just had to get in, get the bird boy, and get out without getting caught. Even if they were 10. Shuji stopped him before they hit a corner. A mouth formed right next to Izuku's ear. "I think I found him. No one else around, but his breathing is bad, it's bad." Izuku nodded and peeked around the corner and his friend. There was one door at the end of the hall, a few feet away. It had a deadbolt on it. Izuku's blood boiled at the thought. First they tortured him, then they locked him up, not even tending to his wounds? Were they trying to kill him? Izuku didn't even care that the commission was technically the backbone of today's society. He was tattling to Nezu and burning it all to the ground. Nezu would probably enjoy it as much as he would, honestly. He gently slid the deadbolt away, Shuji watching the hallways to ensure no one was coming to check on them, and the door creaked open. They both tensed, but no alarms went off, so Izuku opened it the rest of the way. The bird boy murmured something and tried to get up, stumbling as he did so, before he stood tall, at attention, even though he was wobbling and bleeding from multiple cuts. Izuku gasped. His red feathers were bent in places, and one wing was hanging limp. He hurried over to the older boy and gently grabbed his arms, trying to steady him. "Gigi, I need you, he can't walk." Shuji was in the room in an instant, carefully lifting the barely taller boy and arranging him in his arms, letting the limp wing hang on the outside, where it briefly dragged on the floor. Izuku, if I'm holding him, my senses are dulled. He nodded. That's fine. We just have to be fast. He untucked Shuji's phone from his back pocket and opened it up to text the distraction team. Out, wrap it up and keep secretary distracted. He got a thumbs up back and slipped the phone back where he found it, honestly a feat since they were speed walking and Shuji had much longer legs than Izuku. Walking back out the special employee-only doors they had come in through, honestly, the fact they had managed to avoid everyone was incredible, revealed the poor, haggard secretary frantically trying to calm Chaco down, who had resorted to just screaming with explosions and expletives in the background, just so she could get a location. She had no doubt put out an alert for all heroes on patrol to be on the lookout for an explosion villain, not that they would find one. The rest of the group was back at Shuji's house, the closest one, and were no doubt in the backyard, playing heroes versus villains so Shuji's older sister wouldn't get worried. They slipped out the door and could have rushed them in from the alley he had been hiding in with the birds. He immediately fussed over the bird boy, still upset at the cruelty, and typed something out before shoving the phone at Izuku. The birds say he's dying. He needs medical help and fast. Izuku nodded and fished Shuji's phone back out, dialing a number he had long since memorized. It rang once. Hi Nezu. Izuku, are you the cause of this explosion villain alert I'm getting? Anyway, is Mr. Iguchi still in the building? He is indeed. Would you like me to direct your call? Yes please. Oh, and there isn't actually a villain, but I will be calling you back later when I have all the facts, and then we'll have a fun project. How lovely. I look forward to it. Hold a moment, my friend. Gentle music played over the phone while they continued to walk before Shuichi picked up the phone. Hello, this is Iguchi Shuichi? Mr. Iguchi, are you free right now? Recovery Girl and Shuichi met them at Shuji's house, his older sister letting them in immediately after seeing the badly injured bird boy being brought in by her brother, recognizing the medical bag the medic heroine carried, if not the heroine herself. Recovery Girl scared at the passed-out boy, looking extremely annoyed and worried. And you found this boy where? Izuku's eyes were dark. The commission, he said flatly. What on earth could they have been doing to him, to get it this bad? She trailed off with a grumble, waving Shuichi over. Boy, treat his cuts while I look at this wing. The kids were all gathered, shell-shocked and blank-faced, watching the examination and careful bandaging of the older boy, slightly older than Shuichi, even. At one point, he stirred and tried to get up in his delirious state, but Recovery Girl was having none of it, pushing him back down. When he tried to get up again, she gave him a light peck, healing the worst of the bruises around his face and neck, and knocking him right out. When her apprentice was done, she had already set and bound the wing, sitting back to give the boy a critical eye, even as he was dead to the world. Kuda spoke up, barely a whisper. Is he going to live? She sighed and nodded. Yes. I have some concerns, but other than his injuries, he is in peak health. I put his age at somewhere around 17 or 18, and he's nothing but muscle, lean and mean, as the kids would say. Given another 6 hours, he would likely be dead, but something tells me he is a little too stubborn for that. She shook her head and packed up her bag. Observe him for the next 24 hours. If he wakes up, see what information you can get out of him. I already know Nezu will want to take this one. She cast a critical eye at Izuku. You are going to tell him, I gather? Already did, Baba. She snorted. Not your grandma brat, but good. If anyone has been looking for a way to tear into the commission, it's the rat. He nodded and looked back at the fitfully sleeping bird boy. After the two healers had left, he glanced up at Shuji's sister. Suno, can we sleep over? She snorted. Make yourself at home, kiddos, as long as your parents approve. If you can't stay, Nezu and I can watch him. They quickly all whipped out their phones, each one getting approval from their parents. A lot of them were just happy their kids finally had friends, and most of the parents had met the other kids. Shuji dragged out the spare futons and arranged them around the living room, since the bird boy, who they still didn't know the name of, was taking up the couch. Shuji's older sister nodded at the kids that piled around her living room and meandered off to the kitchen. I'm going to keep the kettle on. Something tells me this is going to be a long night. Hitoshi sighed and curled up in the chair. I have insomnia, so I'm not sleeping anyway. I'll take the first shift. Kaken nodded sharply. If the bird wakes up, get at least one other person up. Cheiko raised her fist. I'm second shift. Izuku pouted. Then I'll be third. Kuda raised up 4 fingers with a nod. Shuji. I'm probably going to be up all night, but if I do sleep, I'll go 5th. Kaken huffed. Guess I'm last shift. Turns out, they didn't need shifts, because it wasn't an hour later that a thump woke them all up and had them scrambling up from the floor to hear the whimpering of the boy. Izuku peered down at him, carefully sitting him up to get him off his wing. Hey, it's okay, you're safe, just sit up slowly, that's it. Tsuno brought a glass of water from the kitchen, setting it on the coffee table the boy had narrowly avoided, and at the sound of it connecting with the glass, his eyes shot open and locked onto it. Apparently taking it in sufficiently, golden eyes went from person to person, getting wider with each one until he scrambled back, climbing up the couch until he was perched on the back of it. Izuku held up his hands non-threateningly. Hey, it's okay, you're safe, you're not there. And where is here? His voice was soft and scratchy, and his eyes briefly flicked to the glass of water before locking back onto Izuku. Nobody moved. We're in my friend Shuji's house, he gestured to the tall and still boy, where we brought you to treat your wounds. You were really hurt, mister? His pupils thinned a little. Hawks. Izuku frowned to himself. That wasn't a name, it was a title, a moniker. Okay, Hawks, would you like to drink this water? I can't imagine holding that position is helping your wing, and Baba Chio would kill me if I let you break it again. The boy flinched and looked at his bound wing, before the feathers smoothed out from their fluffed-up position. His hands relaxed minutely, sharp fingernails, talons, really, leaving behind puncture wounds in the couch. He turned to his other wing and grasped one of the bent feathers before tugging it out. Izuku heard Kuda sek in a breath, but the feather came out as easily as breathing. He took the feather between his hands and fiddled with it until it was straightened out again, then tucked it back into place. He did this for a few of the more obvious ones, then just shook out the wing gently, and the rest righted themselves with a buzz. It's not broken. He fingered the bandages binding it closed, and feathers began to slip out, floating in the air until the bandages fell away from lack of support. It seemed like all the straight feathers had flown out, leaving behind only the broken ones, which he set to straightening out, just like before. He didn't flinch once, even though the feathers were partially streaked with blood from where they had bent and broken. The more mangled off the feathers got set aside, not rejoining the wing when the feathers slid back into place, but when he was done his wings looked fine. You couldn't see much of the blood on the red color of the wings, in the darkness of the night besides, but his hands, you could see it on his hands. Throughout the entire ordeal, almost ritual, the 6 kids and 1 adult had just watched, none of them quite sure what to make of this boy who was almost a man. If not for the blood on his hands and the bandaged cuts and bruises, he would look like he was in perfect health. His golden eyes looked back to Izuku, not looking at any of the others. Can I go back now? They all flinched. Cheiko was the one to speak first, sputtering even as sharp eyes turned to her. Why would you want to go back? They were hurting you. He shook his head lightly. They were training me. I would like to go back, please. Kaken raised an eyebrow. Training you for what? High pain tolerance. To be a hero. Ah, that would explain the name. Hawks, eyes shot back to him. That wasn't training. You could have died if we didn't get you out of there. They wouldn't let that happen unless I really messed up. They all exchanged glances. This was not a good start. Hitoshi stood up and felt the attention immediately on him, but ignored it to approach the tense boy. As soon as he noticed the talons curling back into the couch, man, they would have to get Tsuno a new couch after this, wouldn't they? He stopped. The boy relaxed minutely. Training isn't supposed to be like that, even for heroes. Lavender eyes met golden. What's your
name? Hawks. No, your name. Hawks. Your civilian name. Izuku frowned. Do you remember? The 17 or 18-year-old frowned for a moment. It wasn't important. Tsuno spoke up next. Kid, it's your name. How is that not important? Shuji folded his many arms and looked at Izuku. Call Nezu now. Izuku smiled, but there was no joy behind it. Calling Nezu now. Notes. I'd like to think as soon as Izuku said bird mutation, everyone understood where I was going with this, but if not, don't worry, I kept it vague on purpose. Nezu will be looking into this poor bird boy. Honestly, the hardest part about writing this is checking ages and lining them up correctly. Spinner is 15 to 16, Hawks is 17 to 18 RN. It's an interesting time, and this is technically the start of dismantling society. And, who knows, looking into the commission might lead to other children, smiley face. The gang isn't all here yet, that's all I'm saying. We have at least 7 more kids. Name, explanations. Sanji Cho. Both names were taken from the Romanji for kanji for secretary, Sanji and Chokan. Tsuno literally means tentacle, but like a snail's eye stalk tentacle. Don't have a quirk or appearance for her, but she's Shuji's older sister by at least 13 years and takes care of him out here. Chapter 12. A job offer and more digging. Summary. Hawks learns his name, and the gang makes another plan. Notes. In my notes, the chapter title is We Add a Bird to Collection. No, this isn't a mafia family. Why would you think that? Because every time you guys mention the mob or mafia, I cackle. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Hawks, he had a name, he did, found himself being led to UA when it was daylight. Barely, it was just dawn, but he was used to being up at this time, and the herd of 10-year-olds was corralling him to the school. Sure, he could use his wings and take off, flying back to the commission and praying they accepted his excuse for why he hadn't been in his room when they came to get him, but he had the green kid, Midoriya Izuku, holding his right hand, and the explosive blonde, he hadn't caught the name of holding his left. Could he take off with them both? Yes, he was strong. But something about the blonde's expression told him he might lose a hand if he tried that, and he really did not want to explain to his handler why he had let himself get maimed. Plus, he had always secretly wanted to go to UA, and he was wondering if the Nezu these kids seemed to know was the principal. Seemed ridiculous. But then again, he had passed out in his room and woke up across town, so it was at least possible. Midoriya walked through the gates first, waving at, yes, that was a camera, and the boundary stayed open. The UA boundary was famous for keeping out anyone who didn't have a pass, and seeing as these kids were not students and Hawks definitely wasn't, someone must be keeping it open for them. Another point in favor of these kids. Knowing the Nezu, the green kid led them through the halls like he knew every inch of them, and he waved at the heroes they passed on the way. 2 more points. Finally, they were outside the principal's office, and Hawks had to accept that they really did know Nezu, someone the commission would constantly tell him to avoid. Apparently, he was a hassle and a rat. Hawks didn't think they meant he was literally a rat. Am I a mouse, a bear, or a dog? Who knows? But I am the principal of UA. Okay, maybe not literally a rat. Remain to be seen. Thank you for bringing our guest, Izuku. Of course. Hope you don't mind that all my friends came. We weren't sure he wouldn't bolt. Nezu chuckled as Izuku closed the door, leaving just the 3 of them in the room, and hopped into a well-loved chair. No problem at all. It was nice to see them. Perhaps after this you might play one of our games with them? I know Love Letter and Insider both play up 6 players. Most of the others only go up to 4 or 5, sadly, but I also have more games you might want to try, like Evolution. But I digress. Tell me all about our guest. Unless, of course, you wish to tell me about yourself? Hawks most decidedly did not, but it was better than whatever thing Izuku would spin, so he sighed internally. I am Hawks. I'm in training to be a hero. This kid and his friends kidnapped me from where I was being trained. He watched the kid still from where he was fiddling with a Rubik's Cube, and a green eye twitched. As you are probably aware, this is a hero school, so we know a bit about training heroes. Would you tell me about your training regimen? You are in quite good shape, and we could always do with outside alternative perspectives. That didn't seem quite right, but his animal facial expressions were hard to read. My feathers are detachable and have limited telepathy and sense outreach. I focus on increasing my range, efficiency, duration, and finesse. Then there's just regular working out, nothing special. He didn't know why he was trying to cover for the commission. He hated the training they put him through, but he really wanted to be a hero, and they promised him he would. Hell, he was supposed to debut soon, as long as this whole kidnapping thing blew over without serious repercussions. Oh, what sort of workouts? He shifted uncomfortably, unconsciously falling out of attention as he avoided the beady black eyes. You know, just general ones? That sounds like a question. It's not. Nezu sat back in his chair, and Hawks felt like he was being picked apart. He understood now why the commission didn't like him. Do you remember your name, young Hawks? He frowned minutely before schooling his face into perfect neutrality. I don't see how that's relevant to my training. It took some digging, the diminutive principal continued, completely ignoring him, because the commission really tried to erase all traces of it, but luckily I am quite good at sniffing out dirty secrets, and they wanted to hide it like one. He leaned forward and folded his hands, on the desk, looking up at him with serious, steady eyes and a gentle smile. Would you like to know it? Hawks faltered, the immediate answer of no dying on his tongue. He should say no, his name wasn't his anymore, he had forgotten it, he was just a hero. He didn't deserve it. Yes. He blinked in surprise at the answer that came out of his mouth. It was no more than a blurted whisper, but Nezu's ear twitched and his smile widened minutely. Hello, Kigo Takami. I am Nezu, and this is Izuku. It's nice to meet you. All the tension of the last 12 hours came crashing down on him at once as he tasted the name on his lips, and it settled on his shoulders like an old friend. He collapsed with a sob. Kigo was, apparently, 17, turning 18 soon, which is when the commission was planning on having him make his debut. Izuku and Nezu exchanged a glance, and after some intense eye contact, they both nodded. Did you know that I technically have more jurisdiction over my employees than the Hero Commission does? Kigo crinkled his brow. I don't understand. It's simple, you see. As you may or may not be aware, I have somewhat of a troubled past and am not altogether fond of humans in general, especially ones that hold positions of power over me and those I consider my own, nor people who hurt others. He smiled in glee. Hurting others just makes my blood boil, you understand? Kigo paled and nodded with a gulp, fiddling with his left wing, the one that not 12 hours ago had been hanging limp. As such, the commission cut me a deal. I imagine they simply wanted me out of the way and distracted with other things so I couldn't ruin any of their plans, but as part of my leading of this school, the next generation, I was afforded a bit of leeway outside of their control to incentivize me to stay. Of course, if I went directly against them, all bets would be off and they would no doubt push to have me removed, but all of my public employees are subject to me and me alone, with little oversight from the Hero Commission. He chuckled and leaned back in his chair. If they were to try and interfere with my employees, the public outcry would be swift and terrible, not to mention the legal team at UA would tear them to shreds for breach of contract. You have to hold the government accountable before it becomes so bad that you simply have to tear it down and start over. Kigo nodded slowly, and Izuku smiled, laying his head down on his arms and looking at the boy 8 years his elder. What are you implying? Nezu grinned, all teeth and looking a little feral. I have recently had a secretary position open up and am in need of a new hire. Are you, perhaps, interested in a job? I have no experience being a secretary. Why would you even want to hire me? Izuku snorted. Nezu already told you. You'd be safe. Kigo stopped. But I have no experience. Nezu smiled and held out the form. Would it help if I told you I created this job today? In reality, there is not much you would do besides sitting at a desk in the teacher's lounge and occasionally reading papers I send down. Oh, you would also be answering the phone. That is usually the job of a secretary.
Yep.
Nezu used to answer the phone all the time. It was a hassle, but if you take the job, you will be our first line of defense. I hope you aren't shy. He shook his head slowly, staring at the job contract he had been handed. I'm used to talking to people. It comes with the job. Nezu smiled. Excellent, then you'll do just fine. Would you like a pen? Hitoshi watched as Izuku led the bird boy out of Nezu's office, and honestly, the teenager looked pretty dazed. Izuku smiled. Hello again, may I introduce Kigo Takami, UA's new secretary? They all said hello, and Izuku patted the dazed boy on the arm. Okay, bye Kigo. See you later. Kigo waved, blinking as the group of 6 10-year-olds left UA. Izuku was humming as he practically skipped down the pavement, but before they got too far, he whirled around to face the group. How many other secrets do you think the commission has? Kuda smiled and their phones pinged, the group chat going off. Hitoshi looked at his friend with a smirk. Kuda's right, let's go find out. Todoroki Shudo noticed there were a lot more birds around the compound than there used to be, but Fuyumi said it was just because it was spring. Shudo wasn't convinced. Dabi raised an eyebrow at the crow he had been feeding for the last week. I hear your kind is supposed to be smart, so you think you could help me out? I need to make money, and no one wants to hire this patchwork face. The crow pet its head, and Dabi liked to imagine it was almost asking about his trouble. Tell you what, Corvid, you want to hear a story? I know I always enjoy eating more when I have something to occupy me. You might not know all the stuff about humans or whatever, but I bet even a bird like you has heard of the number 2 hero, Endeavor, huh? Well, I know him too, probably a bit more than most. You see, he's my shitty dad. Kuda nodded at the crow, Konosuba, as it told him the story. He immediately whipped out his phone. Anima, I have a scoop. Green bean, HC or stray? Anima, maybe both. Anima, there's certainly a scandal here. Explodey, Jesus F. Please tell me we're not adopting any more sad bois. Explodey, Cheeks, did you change my name again? Gravity Girl. Yeah, XD. Gravity Girl. Anyway, Kuda. Give us the scoop. Octopus. What's the sitch? Anima. Suba got back from talking to Smoky Purple Boy. Anima. Still haven't figured out who it is, and Suba has a vague idea where he hangs out, but Anima. Apparently, he told the crow a story. Insomnia. He talked to the bird? Anima, he's been feeding Suba for a while, and desperate people do desperate things. Anima, we talk to the cats all the time. Insomnia. Valid. Anima, he was talking about his dad. Anima, who is apparently the number 2 hero, Endeavor. Green bean, wait, what? I thought he had like 3 kids. Green bean, and none of them are smoky or purple. Green bean, pretty sure his youngest, Shudo, is the only one with a fire quirk. Anima, like I said, scandal and stray. Anima, honestly, if we can get to this guy, we could get the full story, but from what Suba got. Anima, it's bad, really, really bad. Anima, like Kigo bad. Octopus. Ah, so they have chosen death. Gravity Girl. Why, is this a scandal? Green bean. Secret child who's probably Todoroki Tuya, presumed dead 5 years ago, living on the streets. Green bean. Unless any of you have heard of this before and didn't tell me about the secret 4th child, this is definitely a cover-up. Explodey. Jesus Christ, you had like 3 details and half a minute, and you already found this guy's identity? Green bean. No, I probably found his identity. Green bean. I don't see a reason why he would lie to a crow, but like, Green bean. Not many people would claim to be Endeavor's son, let alone his supposedly dead one. Insomnia. Can I be presumed dead, please? Insomnia. Sounds fun. Explodey. Literally shut the F up, eye bags. If you need a fake death, just ask. You know Zuko has at least 3 plans running at any given time in case the commission decides to check their FING cameras. Green bean. I don't have 3 plans. Explodey. My bad for. Green bean. Sad face. Gravity Girl. Don't worry, Midori. I have a plan for faking at least one person's death too. Green bean. Smiley face. Octopus. Okay, that's cool and all, happy for you guys. Octopus. But Tuya. Octopus. The Todorokis. Octopus. Plan? Anima. I've increased security on the Todoroki household to see if this lackluster and dangerous training didn't stop with one dead kid. Insomnia. But he isn't actually dead. Anima. Pretty sure no one actually knows that but us and Tuya. Green bean. Can Suba guide me to his location? Anima. Sure, are you bringing anyone else? Green bean. Anyone want to talk to another 18-year-old and try and convict his dad for murder, domestic abuse, and child endangerment? Insomnia. I'll go. He sounds like a vibe. Insomnia. Also, I need you to not scare him off by threatening to murder his dad. Green bean. Getting him arrested is not murder. Insomnia. Yeah, we all know that was pretext for you murdering the number 2, just saying. Explodey. Fucker reminds me of me before. Explodey. Well, you know. Explodey. Rubs me the wrong FING way. Gravity girl. Hey, I'll come too. I was on distraction last time, and while that was fun, I want to be in it. DDD. Green bean. Okay. Coulda. What time does he usually meet and feed Konosuba? Anima. Twice. 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Green bean, okay. Basic area? Anima. Sounds like an hour away by train, 2 by walking. Green bean, okay. Toshi, Chaco. Meet you at Toshi and Kuda Station at 3:30 p.m. sharp. Don't be late. Gravity girl. Okay. Smiley face. Insomnia. Sure. Explodey. Can't believe we're just gonna adopt every single fucker with problems in this goddamn country. Explodey. What's next? A FING vampire or something. Octopus. Not sure if those are real, but I suppose anything is possible with quirks. Gravity girl. Oh, aren't vampires usually supposed to be hot? Hell yes. Gimme a vampire next. Insomnia. We're 10? Gravity girl. Sorry, I have a goal in life. Octopus. I'm more concerned that she's looking forward to meeting what is usually known as a blood-sucking monster that will kill you. Explodey. Cheeks, why are you like this? Gravity girl. It's a talent, love. Green bean. I'm gonna go finish my work for today, but I'll see you guys at 3:30. Keep me updated if we find any more evidence. Notes. I have a Discord server if you want to join and talk about the fix, so y'all stop meeting me in other servers and freaking out. Should be in the end notes. Chapter 13. A secretary is not a chicken. Summary. Dobby gets a surprise, and Hawks gets irritated. Notes. I just love these dorks so much. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Dobby was already not having a great day. Sure, he had seen his best friend this morning. Disregard said best friend was a bird, that's not important, but he had almost gotten caught when doing his regular major shoplifting. Luckily, he hadn't survived 5 years on the street by being slow, so he was able to run before the cops could catch him, but he had dropped some of his hard-earned, stolen food, and now he would have to try and get more tomorrow. It was a shitty day to be homeless. At least it wasn't raining, because those days were always the worst. Needing to find shelter, said shelter being musty as hell, food would go bad faster, and his clothes and more importantly socks would invariably get wet. So yeah, at least it wasn't raining. He trudged to the spot he usually hung out with his buddy, twirling the saltines packet between his fingers. He hadn't really named the crow, since that felt a little rude, and he knew he wasn't the best at names. I mean, he had named himself Cremation, so he wasn't exactly a paragon of creativity. The crow was waiting for him and cawed to greet him, like usual. Yeah, you're hungry. I brought you some crackers, chill my guy. Are you Todoroki to ya? He would later claim that he did not scream, but when a small child comes out of nowhere and calls you by your literal dead name, he was dead, it made sense in his head. Out of the blue, you would have to be a weirdo to not jump 3 feet into the air and scream like a little girl. What the F dash? The kid was tiny and green, Dobby noted, with really wide and sparkling eyes. Are you Todoroki to ya? Another kid, taller and purple, sighed from behind the kid. Izuku, I thought we agreed we weren't going to immediately open with that question. But Hitoshi, what else was I supposed to start with? Hi, I'm here to take down your father and the commission. You know that crow you've been befriending for the past several weeks, yeah? That's a spy for one of my friends. You aren't helping. The green kid sighed and turned back to Dobby, who was still plastered against the wall from where he had scrambled back from these children that had appeared out of nowhere. The squirt held out his hand. Hi, I'm Midoriya, Izuku. Dobby blinked at the kid, and then glared at the crow. You turn me in to these kids? What the heck? Man, I thought we were friends. Izuku's eyes widened. Oh no, Suba is still your friend. He was just worried. That's why he told us your life story. The purple kid smacked himself in the face. You what? Izuku frowned. Not working, okay. Let's start over. Hi, I'm Dash. Midoriya, Izuku. Yeah, I know. Now what the hell did you mean when you said you wanted to take down my father and the commission? Does that mean the Hero Commission? Also, do you know who my father is? Izuku smiled, all bright and sunshine. Yes and yes. They've both hurt a lot of people, and they both need to be taken down. We have a bird guard on your family, Dash. He means we have more bird spies watching the main Todoroki household. And with your testimony and my connections, we can definitely get Endeavor arrested. Finding more evidence against the Hero Commission is honestly just a bonus at this point. Dobby blinked. You're like 4. What connections could you possibly have to take down both the number 2 and the government? Izuku pouted and the girl, since when was there a girl? Giggled. I'm 10. Thank you very much. And you should come with us. You can meet my connections. Dobby weighed his options. On one hand, these were literal children. On the other hand, they knew a lot they shouldn't have. I could be a murderer. Are you sure you want me to go with you guys? Konosuba would never hang out with a murderer. Dobby looked at the crow in question. I'm still mad at you. The crow crooned and flapped over to perch on his shoulder and preen his hair, and Dobby sighed. Fine, whatever. I forgive you, but only if this pans out and I can get an actual meal out of it. Izuku smiled again, and Dobby squinted. Great. Follow us. Kigo was having a great time being the secretary for UA. He had a few numbers like the Hero Commissions, written down on a piece of paper, and if one of them called, he got to do everything in his power to make them stop calling. Joe's Crack Shack, we deal it, you feel it. How can I help you? Welcome to Fahitsa Hut. Let me guess, Pie Dash. Hello caller, you're on the air. Thank you for calling Comcast. How can I help you? 119. What's your emergency? District Morgue. What's your body? Larry's Taxidermy. You snuff M. We stuff M. No, this is Patrick. Thank you for calling Booth World Industries. Your number has been logged and traced, and you've been scheduled for remodeling. Hello, this is the People with AIDS hotline. How may I help you? Janet, I swear if you call one more time, I will burn your house down. Or his. Personally favorite, heavy breathing and or straight up screaming into the receiver. He loved this demon job. Occasionally, of course, he'd have to actually answer the phone, but that was pretty easy. He would either direct the calls to someone if it seemed actually important, or he would take down a name, number, and message and relay it to someone later. Did he have experience? No, but he just acted like how he had been taught to deal with fans, maybe throwing in some vapidness because it was fun. If he wanted to act like a ditz, he would. It made people underestimate him, anyway. He saw the door open just as the phone rang, catching his attention, and he rolled his eyes.
Commission again.
You've reached the home office of Bear Grylls. It seems you aren't subscribed to our mailing letter. Would you like to dash? They hung up and he sighed in satisfaction. He looked up at who came in. He blinked. Hi, Kigo. He tore his eyes away from the newcomer to look at the green bean with 2 of his friends, the gravity girl and the purple kid, who really looked like he needed sleep. Hey, Zooks, who's this? This is Dash. Dobby. Kigo smiled and raised both eyebrows, sliding his hands together. Okay, so that's a fake name. Nice to meet you, Dobby. What brings you to my office? Shinso snorted, brat. This is literally the teacher's lounge. Nope, it's the secretary's office. The fact that it's in the teacher's lounge is frankly irrelevant. Dobby looked him up and down. What's a kid like you doing as the secretary of UA? Kigo felt his wings puff up in indignation. Excuse me? I'm probably older than you are. Oh yeah, and how old would that be, Birdie? I'm turning 18 soon. Dobby smirked. Shame, seeing as I'm already 18. Guess I beat you on this one, huh? Kigo ignored the only slightly older boy and turned back to his kidnapper. Zooks, why did you bring this burnt bagel in here? The boy straightened, but Izuku just giggled. Taking him to see Nezu. More stuff to take down the commission with. Kigo smirked. Hell yeah, nice job, kiddo. Can you tell him I'm going to go get some chicken nuggets from the cafeteria? The burnt boy snickered. Chicken? Isn't that cannibalism? Kigo was getting a little mad at this boy's infuriating smirk. Do these wings looks like a chicken to you, mother dash. Whoa, chill. Birdie, there's kids in here. Uraraka snorted. Nah, we've heard it all from Blasty. Fire away, Kay. He stood, straightening himself to his full height. Damn it, Dobby was still taller, and spread his wings a little. I'm a hawk, beach. Hawks eat other birds all the time. Zooks, you want anything from Lunch Rush? Oh, I kind of want something orange-flavored, actually. Birdie, get me some soba, I'm hungry. Didn't ask you, Dobby. The older boy just chuckled as Kigo stalked out of the room, grumbling to himself. If he asked for a bowl of soba while he was there, it certainly wasn't for that infuriating boy. Nezu steepled his paws as much as he could, what with them being so small, and he grinned. Izuku felt Dobby shift nervously beside him, but he just grinned back at his friend. They had already briefed Nezu on the stuff Konosuba remembered, so he had a basic idea of what he was about to hear, but this was technically a first-hand account, and neither of them were keen to let it pass. Well, Dobby, was it? Come sit for some tea, if you'd like. I imagine we have a lot to talk about. Izuku, would you and your friends like to go play? Izuku nodded. Send him to us when you're done? He can play too. Nezu smiled. Of course, Izuku. Izuku grinned and bounded out to where Hitoshi and Chieko were waiting for him, heading back to the teacher's lounge. He meant the secretary office. Kigo walked in just as they did and tossed a bun to Izuku. He looked at it, then shrugged and took a bite. It was like an orange creamsicle custard bun. He grinned at the bird boy in thanks and bounded over to the table, taking 2 decks of cards out of his pocket. Kigo, call Mr. Iguchi down and come play with us. Hawks shrugged and picked up the phone, hitting the button for the intercom with a smirk. His face lit up and he used his most sugary voice. Mr. Iguchi, you've been requested in the teacher's lounge, Mr. Iguchi. He set the phone back down, barely suppressing his laughter. He wiped a tear from his eye and plopped down at the table, immediately sprawling out with terrible posture. So, what are we playing? Izuku giggled and shuffled the 2 decks together, leaving out the jokers. BS. Hitoshi groaned and plopped his head on the table. Izuku, we do not need to play against you in a game about lying and counting cards. Chieko snorted. I believe we can take him. The lizard man walked in, saw Izuku, paled, and turned around to walk out. Mr. Iguchi, come play. He groaned and reluctantly turned back around, slowly sitting down next to Hitoshi. What terrible game are we playing today? Kigo leaned back, grinning, unaware of the danger he was in. Bullshit. Ever played before?
He sighed.
Unfortunately, they played a few normal rounds, pretty basic, Izuku winning most of them, when Dobby came out of the office, looking a little shell-shocked. Izuku waved him down. Come play BS with us. Kigo doesn't really know what he's doing, so you'll be fine. Hey. Dobby looked to Kigo's desk and saw the soba. His eyes widened, and he grinned. Birdie, you shouldn't have. Shut up. He had extra, and you look like a starving rat. I'm flattered. Dobby grabbed the bowl and sat down next to the bird, obnoxiously slurping his noodles directly in his ear. But anyway, it's been ages. Remind me how you play? Izuku smiled. So, I'm going to deal all the cards out to everyone, and then we start with 1 person and aces. You put down a number of cards, face down, and claim them to be that number and whatever you were supposed to lay down. For example, I say 3 aces and lay down 3 cards, and Hitoshi would go next laying down some cards and declaring 2s. If someone doesn't believe you put down what you said, they call BS and they get revealed. If they were right, you take the entire pile of cards, but if you were telling the truth, they take the pile instead. The winner is the first person to have no cards. Oh, Dobby muttered. So, if you don't have the cards, you just lie and pretend you had the cards. Yep. Got it. Who's going first? Izuku dealt out the cards and invited Dobby to start. 2 aces. Kigo put down 2 2s, and Izuku put down 3 3s, grinning all the while, looking the perfect picture of innocence with his big green eyes and bright smile. Hitoshi narrowed his eyes at Izuku, but shrugged and put down 5 4s. Bullshit, Dobby scoffed. There aren't 5 4s in a deck. Hitoshi raised an eyebrow. Dude, we're playing with 2 decks. Dabi paused, but shook his head. Nah, I don't think you have 5 fours anyway, there's 6 of us, no way bullshit. The younger boy shrugged and flipped up the last 5 cards, revealing them to be all 4s. Dabi stared, then grumbled and swept the cards into his hand. Oh, by the way, Izuka said, if you want to get immediate satisfaction from lying and getting away with it, once the next person goes, you can say peanut butter. For example, none of the cards I put down were 3s, so peanut butter. Hitoshi gave a big sigh. This is why everyone is terrified of you, Izuku. He blinked. Me? Yeah, Dabi didn't see it. This kid? Sure. He had scared the shit out of him earlier today, but that had nothing to do with it. The kid merely had the element of surprise and brought up a past no one but a crow was supposed to know about. Said crow had left them when they got closer to UA, apparently going off to find their spy master. Why did 10-year-olds have a spy master? But yeah, other than that, no way this kid was terrifying. Nezu was a little scary, but this kid was harmless. Dabi would soon come to regret that thought when Izuka successfully called out his every bullshit and got away with so much, winning rounds handedly. This kid was terrifying. Anima. Have a confusing report, TBH. Explodey. Is it on the rest of the Endeavor kids? Anima. No, this is new. Anima. Something has been hunting and eating my birds. Explodey. So there's a dog or a cat on the loose, who cares? Anima. No, this isn't an animal. Explodey. No way, this isn't a wild animal. They're birds, they get eaten. Anima. Image, JPG. Explodey. What the F happened to that bird? It's not even eaten, it's just bloody. Explodey. F kinda animal does that. Anima. Again, not an animal. This is a person. Explodey. That's F-Ed. Explodey at Green Bean, get over here. Green Bean. Oh, huh. Green Bean. Why is a person attacking the birds? Anima. It's not a targeted attack, by the way. Apparently, it's all over the place. Green Bean. Can you get me locations? Anima. Gimme's a sec. Anima. Map. JPG. Octopus. Is it just me, or is that in like a path? Green Bean, not just you. Green Bean. The person is traveling somewhere. Green Bean. Okay, running the math, they should be nearby in 4 days. Explodey. We are not going towards the crazy bird sucker. Explodey. I will tell Auntie. Gravity Girl. Do the birds know what we're looking for? Gravity Girl. No. Anima. Crazy. Blonde. Some red. Green Bean. Kakin, have you been attacking birds? Explodey. F. Off. Insomnia. Wait, so are we. Insomnia. Actually. Insomnia. Going after the bird sucker. Insomnia. Please say no. Green Bean. I think we should at least check it out. Green Bean. We care about the birds. Green Bean. They are our main source of information and have already given us 2 great leads. Green Bean. Plus it makes me sad to see them dying, smiley face. Anima. Not one for confrontation, but I will accost this monster if I see them in real life. Gravity Girl. Might be a weird quirk thing. Gravity Girl. But if they're chasing birds, can't we lure them in using a bird? Green Bean. I don't want to put more birds at risk, dash. Explodey. Are we really FING doing this? Really? Green Bean. You Dawn. TF to come if you don't want to. Explodey. Oh, I'm going. Explodey. Don't want to have to explain to Annie why you got mauled by a bird sucker. Explodey. Wait a goddamn minute. Insomnia. What now? Explodey. IF called it. Explodey. Vampire, bitches. Explodey. Ha 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 ha. Get F, I called this sheet. Explodey. But goddamn it, why do I always have to be right? Gravity Girl. Smiling face with hard eyes. Green Bean. Oh. That makes sense. Based on the amount of birds, whoever it is needs quite a bit of blood, or at least they aren't getting any other sustenance. Green Bean. Seems like we also don't have them eating any people, or we would have heard about it on the news. Green Bean. I can't wait to meet them. Explodey. Why are you such a dumbass? Green Bean. Explodey. Oh, a vampire? Cool. Let's meet the blood skin creature of the night. Great idea. Octopus. That's honestly fair. Octopus. This seems like something to call the authorities on. Green bean. Can't be worse than breaking into the HC. Explodey. It definitely can. Green bean. Oh well, we have 4 days to plan. Explodey. Cheeks, she's just your type. Gravity girl. Wait, what's my type? Explodey. Bats hit. Gravity girl. Rude. Gravity girl. I'm coming over. Explodey. Fine, but if you die, I'm not explaining it to your parents. Gravity girl. Deal. Gravity girl. Sis.
Notes.
Everyone who said toga, guess who you're gonna see next time? That's right. Todoroki Shudo. Have been looking forward to BS with the adults, aka the teenagers, because they enjoy it. Dabi is gonna do great at his new job, that is janitorial work. Kigo can and will mock him for it. Speaking of the bird, him being like a teenage girl on the phone and just being an airhead, as an act of course, is an hilarious image I need to put in everyone's heads. Like, it's a serious business call, and he's just painting his nails and flipping through a magazine. OMG, really? It's perfect. Also, Suba is a perfect bird. His name comes from the kanji for, this stuff. That's the kanji site I use, and I love Suba with my whole heart. Chapter 14. A Vampire and a Party. Summary. You wanted her, you got her.
Notes.
I love her a lot. Thanks for coming to me TED Talk. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Himiko wasn't entirely sure how she got here, if she was being entirely honest. She had been chasing a bird when she was tackled to the ground, and it was pretty hazy since she was just really hungry, but then something was waved in her face, and it smelled so good, and she latched onto it and devoured it. She had been upset that it was gone so quickly, cursing herself for not being able to hold back. But then there was another one. This one she took her time on, savoring every bloody bite. It was nice. The outside was just cooked, but the inside was still pretty purple and just full of delicious blood. It was amazing. Then her eyes had cleared, and she saw the 3 boys. The biggest one had many arms and a mask covering his neck and mouth, and his many arms were folded. He looked defensive. She hoped he wasn't mad at her for the birds. The next one was blonde, like her, but he had red eyes and was glaring always. He was taller than her, which wasn't hard since she didn't eat a lot. Even though he was glaring, Himiko didn't think he was going to attack her. He was just annoyed. The other one was really tiny and cute and green. Himiko personally thought he looked like a bush, but he had been the one to give her the food, so she automatically liked him. She wasn't really able to pay attention to what the bush was saying, but he promised her more food, so she was more than happy to follow them. She only looked at the birds a few times on the journey. Really, she felt much better after the snack the bush had given her, but she was still hungry. There was a small grandma and a lizard boy who looked only a little older than she was, and then the grandma handed her a pouch. It was blood. Himiko closed her eyes at the first taste, letting it wash over her, and she sighed internally. She wanted to SCK it up all at once, but she didn't know when she'd get more blood, so best to savor it. Drinking blood was weird and wrong after all. These people were just also weird. But not wrong. They couldn't be wrong. They were so nice to Himiko. 2 more blood packets later, Himiko was full and sitting on the edge of a bed. Still no clue how she had gotten there, but the nice grandma was looking her over and clicking her tongue. Dearie, when was the last time you actually ate? She hummed. The bush gave me some snacks. The grandma paused before glancing over at the bush in realization.
Ah.
And before that, Himiko thought and thought and thought, but she really couldn't remember. Things had been hazy for the last, what was the date? Oh, she was 11 now. That was fun. The nice granny gave her some gummies and Himiko found she liked them. Not as much as blood, but they were sweet. Then a little mouse person came down to say hello, and he brought a big man with, like, tusks. He was all red and silver, and had these yellow glasses on, and apparently his name was Mr. Ken. He had a blood quirk just like Himiko. The next person to come in was a cutie named Uraraka Ochako. Even her name was cute. Himiko smiled and waved at her. She was pink and brown, and Himiko hoped she could see her again. She looked like fun. According to Nezu, the little mouse person, Mr. Kan would be taking care of her for a while until they could find her parents. She wasn't super happy about that, and the bush seemed to notice, because he asked her if her parents were mean. She felt bad for crying, but thinking about her parents reminded her that she was a monster. Then the lizard boy knelt next to her. Am I a monster? She was confused. He was just a lizard man. Why would that make him a monster? People called me a monster too.
What?
But he was so nice. And you're nice too. You aren't a monster just because of your quirk. Oh no. She was crying again. The grandma gave her a juice box. It wasn't blood because she was full and something about getting her appetite back, but it was apple juice, so it was still really tasty and sweet. Himiko was glad she had followed the bush, the tall boy, and the angry one. For the first time in months, she could think clearly. Izuku was glad Himiko had seemed better after getting some actual food in her, and that Vlad King was willing to take her in due to their similar quirks. Luckily, Recovery Girl had some blood on hand that they could feed her, since the meat they had barely cooked wasn't actual blood, no matter how fresh it was. Cheiko was very excited to have another girl in the group. No, it's not because she's a vampire, and immediately hounded the teacher into arranging playdates. Technically, since she was a ward and under hero watch due to her abuse, there was nothing else they could call what her parents had done to her, and Izuku had a feeling they had barely scratched the surface. She couldn't leave the house, but she could have visitors, so Cheiko had volunteered to be her into the normal, outside world. Izuku had high hopes for her. She seemed really nice. Even Kudo was willing to forgive her as long as she stopped eating the birds, so, progress. Her 12th birthday was coming up soon in August. She had been out on the streets for almost a full year, in a haze of starving bloodlust. Izuku was really glad he had gotten her last name, because he had some people to send the police after. It was that or resort to murder, but he had a feeling that even if he didn't get caught, which he wouldn't, at least 3 of his friends would be disappointed in him. Today, he and Nezu had been invited to a party. Actually, they were allowed to bring guests, so Izuku decided to bring Kaken and Hitoshi. Kaken because he was still sulking that they went after Himiko, and Hitoshi because he needed to get out more. Plus, he was fun to hang out with. Nezu met them at the station, and they all took the train together until they were outside their destination, what looked like just a regular office building. Probably for the best, since this was a party for the #1 hero. Less attention they attracted, the better. There was a 16-year-old girl at the desk, and she grinned. Hi, Principal Nezu. Hello, Awada. Izuku, this is Awada Karakoko, a 3rd year at UA and Sir Naitai's intern. Izuku beamed at the blue-skinned woman. Hi, I'm Izuku. These are my friends Kaken and Hitoshi. She chuckled. Yeah, I think I've seen you and some of your buds in the halls. Here for the party? 3rd floor. You can't miss it. Izuku paused. Are you gonna go? She smiled. Yeah, I will. Just gotta man the front for half of it until Centipeter can take over. I can't just let anyone walk in, you know? He grinned. Makes sense. See you later, Awada. She waved as they got in the elevator, Hitoshi pressing the button for the 3rd floor. It dinged as they reached their floor, and Izuku was bouncing up and down. It had been a couple of months since he had last seen Naitai and All Might, or Toshinori, as the man insisted on being called after their 3rd visit, and he was excited to see them both. It really was impossible to miss, since the door was surrounded by balloons and streamers, all in the red, white, blue, and gold, the traditional All Might colors. Inside, it was filled with people, most of whom Izuku didn't recognize, actually, including a detective who was smiling and talking to Toshinori, and a short old man who was hovering around the food table, eating all the sweets and throwing popcorn at Toshinori's head. The man didn't seem to notice, but someone across the room seemed to be keeping a tally of how many popcorn could bounce off before he did. It was currently in the 30s. Izuku bounded over to the hero, completely ignoring the fact that Nezu had split off and his 2 friends were frozen in the doorway. Oops, he forgot to warn them, didn't he? And grinned up at the man. Toshinori. The man laughed and picked him up, swinging him around. Young Izuku, I am glad you could make it. I have no doubt that this is all due to your influence. Naitai snorted and muttered something about puppy eyes under his breath, but neither of them heard him. I see you brought friends? Izuku grinned as he was set down and tugged the pro over to his still wide-eyed friends. Yep, this is Kaken and Hitoshi. Kaken, Hitoshi, this is Yagi Tashinori. Or, All Might. Slowly, Kaken turned to him. Izuku. Yes. What the F dashed? All Might looked taken aback at the 10-year-old's language, but Hitoshi piped up next. So, was anyone going to tell me you knew All Might personally, or was I just supposed to find that out myself? How long? Have you known him to know his name? Since I was 8? Yeah, it's almost 2 years now, huh? Kaken nodded. Okay, since I can't scream right now, I'm going to stuff my face with food. Hitoshi just shook his head and went back to staring at the symbol of peace with narrowed eyes. So, how did you meet Izuku anyway? Yagi scratched the back of his head sheepishly. I was being reckless, and he helped me see that. What the F is with this cake? Izuku meandered over to Kaken, who looked irritated. The sheet cake in question looked like a regular gender reveal cake, except instead of saying it's a boy or it's a girl, it said it's a lung. The old man barked out a laugh. Learn to appreciate humor, brat. The idiot is, as of last week, with all of his organs. Tashinori chuckled nervously, edging away from the old man. Gran is correct. I am completely whole and ready to go back into hero work. Kaken looked aghast. Your vacation was because you had lost a lung? And his stomach. Izuku piped up. Yes, All Might sighed. And it has been a long 2 years in recovery, but I am finally ready to get back to work. After 2 months of light hero work to make sure you're actually okay and you don't get yourself on the edge of death again. Gran didn't even look at him, merely taking another bite of the dango he had picked up. Why yes, I won't be quite as up to my regular levels for a while, but I will be back in action. It's better than retiring due to my injuries after all. Izuku beamed.
Yep.
You look way better than you did 2 years ago. Kaken, check this out. Doesn't he look so sick? He whipped out his phone and opened the picture he had taken of Tashinori in his hospital bed looking sheepish and giggled, and the dumbfounded expression on his friend's face. Gran snorted. I like this kid. Izuku, right? Yep. Sorahiko. Here's my number. Send me that picture. Okay, Mr. Sora. All Might looked ready to pass out, seeing the two of them interacting. And the party had only just started. Dobby, this is Little Green's spy master, right? Dobby, the one the crow snitched to. Suba says he's sorry, but also not really. But yes, this is the spy master. Dobby, I hear you have birds on my siblings. Spy master, and? Dobby, are they doing okay? Spy master, in general, yes. Spy master, Izuku is probably planning on finding a way to pass messages and get them to meet up with us, so we can get their statements and get the show on the road. Spy master. But they rarely leave the compound, so we have to carefully plan this. Spy master. Anything else? Dobby, can you pass a note for me? Spy master. I'll do you one better. Spy master. I can pass your number. Spy master. Then as long as they have access to phones they can talk to you as much as you want. Dobby, really? Dobby, you do that? Spy master. Konosuba speaks highly of you. Spy master, provide him with a snack, and you have a deal.
Dobby, done and done.
Dobby, I guess I'll give the paper to him? Spy master, sure. Dobby, thanks. Dobby, you're pretty good for a brat. Spy master, thanks, I think. Is this a joke? Dobby, depends. Dobby, is this about the birds? Prove it's really you. Dobby, ran away when I was 13. Dobby, dyed my hair. Dobby, Yumi wanted to be a teacher last time I checked, but if that's changed. Dobby, she's icy, literally. She has a frost quirk. Dobby, pretty sure Natsu is gonna grow up to be taller than me and I hate it. Dobby, he's quirkless, like Little Green. Dobby, ignore that last one. You don't know him. Dobby, and Sho. Dobby, well, Sho doesn't really like talking to people or emoting, but when he smiles it reminded me why I stayed. Dobby, I guess I left after he stopped smiling. Dobby, because of...
Dobby, well.
Dobby, Dear old dad. Dobby, is that enough, or? Tuya? It's really you? Dobby, I mean. Dobby. Unless the family became a lot more open than when I left, and suddenly all that information is public knowledge.
Dobby, then yeah.
This is for Yumi. Yumi, and I'm going to kill you. Dobby. Thanks. Dobby. I already tried though, didn't take. Dobby. Now I'm just kinda purple. Yumi, but you're okay? Yumi. Why didn't you contact us before now, you jackass? Yumi. We thought you were dead. Dobby. Legally, I am. Dobby. Have a fake name and everything. Dobby. Let me tell you, living on the streets? Dobby. 010. Would not recommend. Yumi. Answer the demon question. Tuya. Dobby. Yeah, I'm okay.
Dobby. Little Green found me.
Dobby. Well, no, the birds found me and snitched to Little Green and his spy master. Dobby, but, Dobby. Same difference. Dobby. What about you guys? Dobby. How are Sho and Mom?
Yumi. Tuya.
Yumi. Mom got sent to the hospital.
Dobby, what?
Dobby. Why? Yumi. She burned Shudo with hot water. Dobby. That BSD already pushed her too far. Dobby. Which hospital is she in? Yumi. Mommed map. Dobby. Okay, I can go visit her soon. Dobby. What about everyone else? Yumi. Natsu is angry all the time. Sho is quiet and withdrawn, and Dad is. Yumi. Well, you know. Dobby. I do. Dobby. We're working on it.
Yumi, we?
You and Little Green?
Dobby. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Dobby. But trust the birds, they belong to us anyway. Yumi, you sound like Shudo. Dobby. WDYM. Yumi. The birds work for the bourgeoisie. Dobby. LMAO. Dobby. We're directly opposed to the government. Yumi. Did you join an anarchist gang?
Dobby, no.
Dobby. But, I mean, apparently we're planning on taking down dear old Dad. Dobby. So we aren't pro-government. Yumi. I have many concerns. Yumi. The first time I hear from you in 5 years, and I hear you're taking down society. Yumi. Only you, Tuya. Dobby. Thank you, I try. Dobby. So how have you been? Yumi. Busy. Yumi. When Mom left, I became the woman of the house, I guess. Dobby. How old were you when this happened? Yumi. 14. Dobby. Quick question, WTF. Yumi. It's fine, I've had 3 years to get it right. Yumi. I'm much better at cooking. Dobby. Yeah, that's not great. Dobby. We can probably use that for the case, though. Yumi, are we really doing this? Dobby. Going against Enji?
Dobby. Yes.
Yumi, but... Yumi. Where will we go? Dobby. Technically, I am a legal adult. Dobby. But also currently, I'm technically a ward of UA. Yumi, wait, what?
Yumi, how?
Dobby. Little Green has connections and brought me right to Nezu. Yumi. Who is Little Green? Dobby. He's Shudo's age. Actually, pretty crazy. Dobby. Also, we have a birdie working as the secretary. Dobby. He's pretty cute. Dobby. Keep in mind this is an actual person with wings and not an actual bird like the ones who are spying on you always. Yumi. So it's a person with a bird quirk.
Dobby. Yes.
Yumi. And he's cute? Dobby. When did I say that? Yumi. Scroll up.
Dobby. Oh.
Dobby. It's fine, you'll never meet him. Yumi. So you think he's cute, huh?
Dobby. Stop.
Yumi. No, you left for 5 years, you get to deal with this now.
Dobby. He's easy to annoy.
Yumi. And you like that in a boy. Dobby. No, I cannot talk about this with my kid sister. Yumi. What color is his hair? Black, brown, red? Dobby. He's blonde, but I don't see how that matters. Yumi. What type of bird is he? Animal quirks are usually based on a specific animal. Dobby. His wings are bright red, but he calls himself a hawk. Yumi. Oh, a predator? Yumi. KNKY.
Dobby. Please stop.
Yumi. Again. Maybe don't leave for 5 years. Dobby. Let me die. Dobby. I will burn myself again. Yumi. Wait till I'm there, and then I can help you with my frost. Yumi. Also, so I can meet this boy, smiley face. Yumi. What's his name? Dabi, no, nope, not doing this. Dabi, I checked that you're alive and you know I'm alive. Dabi, that's enough out of me. I'll give you updates on the dad situation when I know more. Dabi, say hi to the others for me. Yumi, there is no escape. Tuya. Dabi, yes there is, I just won't respond. Yumi, love you too. 3.
Dabi, die.
Dabi, but I love you guys too.
Notes.
Dabi would absolutely name people things in his contacts, and Kuda will forever be the spy master. Hope you liked all the memes, I sure did. Speaking of, I get some in the Discord, got one for TLT that I forgot to put up, but will next time. Chapter 15, A Tour and an Endeavor in Journalism.
Summary.
Read the tin.
Notes.
Yeah, it's a pun. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Shudo wasn't entirely certain what was going on, to be entirely honest with himself and the world. On paper, yes, he knew what was happening, but he didn't know why. What was pretty easy to articulate. They had gotten sent an email about how UA was offering them a free tour, since not only was Endeavor an alumni, but he was a donating alumni, and he had someone who was looking to apply to high school soon. Natsuo didn't look enthused, but Fuyumi had looked incredibly excited, so both brothers had agreed to go. Endeavor couldn't make it. He had business to take care of, but Nezu, the principal, said that his children could be met at the gate by a member of the staff, all trained heroes, and would be perfectly safe on UA grounds. Shudo was suspicious of that. Not at the being safe part, that made sense. UA was a hero school and it was well renowned for having top-of-the-line security, so within its walls and surrounded by heroes and hero hopefuls, they would be completely safe. No, Shudo was suspicious of the sudden work that had come up for Endeavor about 2 hours before they were supposed to leave. He was grumbling about it, but Fuyumi said with a solemn face that it was probably really important and that she would take care of her 2 younger brothers. Endeavor had scoffed lightly and turned to him. Shudo, this will be your school in 4 years. Be a good representative of our family. Nothing to say to Natsuo, of course, who was maybe looking to join the general education program despite being quirkless. They had lifted the ban 2 years ago, completely out of nowhere, and it was a good education besides, even if Natsuo didn't want to be a hero. Shudo was really confused as to why Fuyumi looked so excited. She wasn't even going to be attending this school. It wasn't like she could transfer and she liked where she was now, so why was she so excited for this tour of a school? Endeavor dropped them off when Present Mike, as he introduced himself loudly, met them at the gate, escorting them in. He guided them through the halls, pointing out classrooms and such, but apparently their real tour guide would be meeting them soon. He was just getting them to him. He opened a door and swept them inside to where a blonde teenager with big red wings was sitting at a desk. He glanced up at them and broke out into a grin. Hi, I'm Fuyumi. His sister stepped forward. It's nice to meet you. Hawks. No, Kigo Takami. The bird boy scowled a little at the slip-up, but was soon all smiles. Hey Dabi. Shudo blinked as he yelled, and heard some grumbling from another room. What do you want, birdie? I have. The boy trailed off when he saw them, eyes wide. Fuyumi shot forward, grabbing his hands and clucking at the large purple burns that covered his body. Tuya, what on earth have you been doing to yourself? Please tell me you're getting treatment for these. Duh. Recovery girl would have my hide if I skipped a session. Always gonna have scars, but apparently in another 2 weeks I should be mostly healed up. Natsuo croaked out a what? Shudo was pretty confused, but the boy man grinned. Hey, Nats. It's been a while. How's home treating you? Natsuo sniffled and ran forward, slamming into the man. Hawks Kigo had called him Dabi, and muttering stuff Shudo couldn't hear, but did have a few curse words in it. Damn it, I was right. You are going to be taller than me. Shudo furrowed his brow. What had Fuyumi called him? It certainly hadn't been Dabi, but he had been too distracted by the scars and dark hair to catch it. Dabi looked up at him and smiled softly. Hi, Sho.
Oh.
Tuya. Dabi was honestly having the time of his life, despite Yumi and Natsu taking turns ribbing him and the stupid pigeon putting in his own snide comments. Birdie, he sighed, if I get you chicken nuggets from Lunch Rush, will you clear out? Kigo shot him finger guns. You've got yourself a deal, Crispy. Have fun showing them around. He rolled his eyes and the bird took off, meandering down the halls to find someone to bother, and Yumi turned to him with a raised eyebrow.
What?
You were right, she mused. He is cute. Dobby felt like he had activated his quirk on his face and scowled. Shut up, please, and thank you. He's annoying, as I'm sure you gathered. Doesn't stop him from being cute, though. Nezu chortled. Didn't know you were into airheads, too. Dobby rolled his eyes and shoved his hands in his pockets. Don't let the act fool you. He's smart as hell. He just likes people underestimating him. Sho was quiet, but spoke up with a frown. Isn't eating chicken cannibalism for him? He threw up his hands. That's what I said. But apparently it's his favorite food and he's a bird of prey, or some sheet. Yumi gasped at his language, but Shudo just nodded. Is he a government agent? Because he's a bird. Dobby snorted. Nah, kid, I told Yumi already, but all the birds work for us, not the government. No bourgeoisie here. Except maybe Nezu. He has all this tea. Shudo nodded solemnly and tugged on his sister's sleeve. I told you it wasn't because of spring.
She sighed.
Yes, I know. I found that out a few days ago myself. Nezu rolled his broad shoulders and that wasn't fair. Dobby was just lanky as hell, and grinned. So, I hear we're going on a tour? As if, he retorted, that was literally an excuse to get you guys here to talk. He straightened up, forcing down the mirth to be serious for once. Little Green is building a case against Endeavor. Both of his brothers bristled, Yumi already having heard the news, and he continued. I can show you around for now. Nezu and Green will call us in when they're ready for statements. I've already given mine, but witness testimony from family will be really important. He grinned at his siblings. But for now, let me show you all the cool shit at UA. Nezu hummed. Now, it is time for us to form a plan. We cannot, as you know, simply bring forth a case against Endeavor, even with witness testimony, or the Hero Commission will sweep it under the rug. Unless we blackmail them, Izuka chirped. Yes, Nezu chuckled. Unless we blackmail them. But I feel we might want to hold on to any blackmail material we may or may not have for future enterprises. Izuka nodded, green curls bobbing. Then what would you imagine is the best way to ensure they cannot dismiss it out of hand? Izuka tilted his head and hummed. Get it in their heads without explicitly telling them? And who is they in this case? The public. Nezu blinked. Not the commission? Izuka shook his head. We have to get the public support so the commission has no choice but to take the case. Interesting. And what methods would you use to get the public to think about it without directly telling them, as you said? Izuka hummed. I think it was called available heuristic? Availability heuristic, but yes.
What do you recall about that?
Well, it's the tendency to believe that the first thing that comes to mind is the right thing. It lets us make snap judgments, even if they're wrong. So, if you put something to the front of someone's mind a lot, they're more likely to believe you. It's like the concept of boiling a frog. If you throw them into hot water, they'll notice immediately and freak out, but if you slowly let the water heat up, it probably won't notice. He blinked. It might still try to get away, though, since it's a wild animal, but I think the analogy still holds. Nezu chuckled. Indeed, slow and steady wins the race, as it were. Anything else that might help or that we should be aware of going in? Izuka bit his lip. Bias, probably. People believe that most heroes can do no wrong, which obviously isn't true, so we need to overcome that bias. Priming can certainly help with that if we lead with the right words to get people in the mindset, like reckless or detrimental. I think that one is fun and makes it sound really important. They took a moment to smile at each other before Izuku continued. So, if we start by not even talking about heroes but talking about damage and stuff, then we can get people on our side, and then slowly introduce them to the concept that not all heroes are great. We need to slowly ease the public into the fact. Plus, he perked up, then we can slowly start to get rid of this emphasis on quirks, so we can get rid of discrimination. A powerful quirk doesn't make people predisposed to being a hero, since Endeavor certainly doesn't live up to the name. Nezu nodded. An excellent point. This can help lay the groundwork for our future endeavors. Now, when do you believe the best time to do this is? Izuka hummed.
Soon.
Since All Might is coming off of leave, we have the support network, but people also recognize a bit more that heroes are people too, since he needed to have that break. It will probably be easier for people to stomach if we don't let them get back into the mindset that having the symbol of peace in business affords them. Nezu slid over a laptop. Then, I suggest we get started. Shuji checked the news and raised his eyebrows at the headline. Anonymous researcher releases statistics on villain crimes by percentage. Highest are property damage, assault, and theft. Oh boy, it was starting. Shudo was avidly watching for news reports, waiting for the day that Endeavor's name would cross headlines in a negative light. Psychic Razor Sharp found to be an abuser. Closer and closer, with each anonymous article published. Katsuki sneered at the latest headline. Zuko was really starting his campaign, huh? Well, good, it was about time he started to tear it all down. 3 top 100 heroes you didn't know had scandals. Cover-ups by the commission.
Just a matter of time, now.
Cheiko giggled and moved her phone in front of Himiko. Himi, look, Midori posted another one. This one is really blowing up. The blonde girl blinked. Bush did?
Cool.
Why collateral damage is extrajudicial justice and why that is illegal. Kigo grinned. Dobby, we're one away, I think. Zooks has been looking excited, and this one is pretty telling. Oh yeah? What's this one? It's not even his article, it's just about him. Anonymous journalist keeps getting taken down. What does the government have to hide? Yeah, that sounds about right. Enji Todoroki was fuming in his office. His PR department had been working overtime these past few weeks, ever since he got called into work that one time. Suddenly, people cared about his property damage. Saying he caught the villain was not enough. And God forbid, he kill the villain. Then he was skirting the law and delivering unjust punishment. Anyone who got caught in the crossfire was stupid. Everyone should know by now. If you see the number 2 hero, and didn't that great. All Might took 2 years off, but Enji was still number 2 as soon as the blonde buffoon came back. Then you should leave or face the consequences. If you got burned, it wasn't his fault, and people had understood that.
Until now.
The scandal of Razor Sharp had made some ballsy journalists ask about his wife, which was ridiculous, because not only was that largely kept out of the public eye, but it was years ago, so why bother bringing it up now? She had snapped, gone off the deep end. What more was there to talk about? He got her the best care money could buy, which was exceptionally generous considered. She damaged his masterpiece. Then there were the scandals about the top 100 heroes getting their illegal dealings covered up by the Hero Commission, which, honestly, they should know better than to let the commission fight their battles. The government was completely unreliable when it came to lawyers, despite literally being the basis of the legal system. This was clearly proven in the commission's inability to keep that crackpot anonymous journalist from publishing those articles every few days. They had it down to a science, let the public talk about the articles, let the news do a segment or two, and then just as interest was dying down, publish another one. As fast as they got taken down, they got put back up. People had taken to getting screenshots of the articles, so the word trackers could not identify the words via the pictures nearly as quickly, and everyone seemed to have a copy. And then the DMN article came out. Endeavor, more property damage than the top 100 heroes combined, and the top 10 most destructive villains per year, and most death for non-violent criminals. It was ridiculous. Oh, it was a sound article. They cited all their sources from public databases, but the commission had hidden those statistics for a reason. They didn't look good. And this article just laid them out for the world to see. So yes, he caused a lot of property damage, but his Hellfire quirk was not a passive one, it was an active one, and if villains decided to run away, fire could spread. And yes, sometimes the villains he was chasing, because calling them mere criminals was generous, did end up burnt beyond saving, but in the end he took another villain off the street, and people knew that. So, why was he getting such anger from the public? People were calling for review of his license, which was, frankly, preposterous. He was the number 2 hero, for God's sake, and he hadn't gotten there playing nice with the villains or pandering to civilians. His PR department was angry with him and told him to make a public apology. He did, of course, saying he would try to be more careful in the future without compromising his job as a hero. One news outlet, It may or may not have been run by the Hero Commission, but what the public didn't know wouldn't hurt them, talked about how in the time of All Might's 2-year break for health reasons ridiculous, he should have just retired. That endeavor was there to maintain and stabilize society, and that got some flack off of him. People finally understood how grateful they should be to him, and for a moment, everything seemed fine. Then the final article came out, and he found himself in a courtroom within a month. Testimony from family. Endeavor is a domestic abuser. He drove his wife crazy and one child to death. Heartbreaking stories from the Todoroki children. He stared down all 4 of his children. Trio was alive in the courtroom, and the judge sentenced him to a stripped hero license and 10 years in prison. He caught green eyes in the crowd as he was escorted out, and they were like venom, but the child they belonged to was smiling. All of UA was celebrating, since Nezu and Izuku were celebrating. They had had a successful campaign to bring down Endeavor and to lay the groundwork for dismantling the commission, much to Kigo's enjoyment. They needed a little more work before they could get there, a few more cases against them, and then Kigo would finally be free to fly again, not just kept on UA grounds where they couldn't see him. All of Izuku's strays were there, as Dabi called them, plus all of the teachers. It had taken several months to turn public opinion around completely, and Himiko was 12 and Kaken was turning 11 in a week. Izuku quickly drew Shudo into their group of now 7, 8 counting him, and Fuyumi, Kigo, and Dabi all hung out together as the almost adults. Natsuo was comparing medical notes with Shuichi, and they were having quite the animated conversation. Apparently, Natsuo would be attending UA the next year, 1 year behind the lizard boy, who had transferred in to do his work. Experience with Recovery Girl. Rei, the siblings' mother, was also there, having been released from the hospital and given full custody of her children. They had inherited the Todoroki family fortune, Enji losing all rights, and of course no one would call him Endeavor, since his license had been stripped and property, and they sold the estate and moved into a much smaller house as Mustafa, closer to UA and, consequently, Izuku and half of his group. Shudo finally had friends and understood what it was like to play. He also adopted his oldest brother's name for Izuku, calling him Little Green. Cheiko made fun of Izuku for it, teasing him about how short he was, but Izuku just grinned. His own mother was there, talking to Rei and talking about the neighborhood and the best places to shop, the times of the week the grocery store had the best deals, areas to stay away from, and so on. The white-haired woman looked relieved to see the other mother, and between them and Nezu they sat in a quiet corner drinking tea and smiling. Izuku was really happy with how everything had turned out, but as the party wound down and they all said goodbye, going to their respective homes, Izuku sat down in front of the computer and got started on his next article as the anonymous Green Bean. Quirk bias and how it hurts the strong and the weak. Recently, there was a huge scandal with Todoroki Enji, formerly known as Endeavor, the number 2 hero in Japan. It brought a point that not all heroes are infallible. Indeed, they are just people like you and me. But before claims of his abuse were brought to light, most people disliked him for the amount of accidental death and property damage that he caused using his powerful quirk, Hellfire, a quirk that everyone can agree is strong and perfect for a hero. But what if this mentality is hurting us as a whole? Hellfire is a fire-based quirk that is incredibly useful for villain detaining and intimidation, because no one wants to get burned. With a powerful quirk like that, everyone would say that you should become a hero. It's the best job choice for someone that strong. I would like to propose that this is a bad mindset to have for a few reasons. In former hero Endeavor, people saw his power and said that his faults were excusable. Looking at his records, he did not start as a destructive hero, but as more time went on, the numbers kept rising, and no one did anything about it. Because of his powerful quirk, we as a society said it was okay. Consider children in school. High school is the first opportunity to go to a hero school and try to become a hero, but anyone who has taken a hero school entrance exam will tell you that it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. Some people might have great quirks for heroics, but there's a heavy focus on flashy and powerful quirks to the point where most of them have to settle for general education, even if they would make fantastic heroes otherwise. Where does this mentality come from? In general, people get their quirks around their 4th birthdays, and from then on, people have already decided what they can or can't be. If you have a powerful and flashy quirk, like water manipulation, then you are told your entire life that you would make a great hero. I'm not saying that's wrong, but I am saying that this mindset is a hindrance to our children and their futures. Being a hero is more than just having a powerful quirk. I hope my articles have shown that at the very least. Let us further our example of the person with a water manipulation quirk. There are current heroes who also deal with water, like the water hose duo, backdraft, wash, and so on. People can see them and find inspiration and hope, and they are role models for children with similar quirks. This child is in school, and everyone says and thinks they will make a great hero. To get into hero schools, you need to have good grades. If the student gets a poor grade on a test, a teacher might give them extra credit opportunities to help boost their grades, because they wouldn't want to lose such a promising hero candidate over something as silly as history or art. The teachers praise the student, telling them how much potential they have, and the child starts to notice that people with weaker and less flashy quirks don't get the same kind of treatment. They are the only ones the teachers speak about in such glowing terms. Children learn what they are taught. This child starts to think that because the others do not get praised, the others are lesser. They are worse, simply because they don't have a powerful quirk. They start picking on the other kids. The teachers do nothing, not wanting anything to happen to their star pupil for something as simple and innocent as name-calling. Kids will be kids, they say. The name-calling escalates to pushing people, to hurting them, to walking all over them, and the teachers do nothing because this child is going to be a hero, and who are they to get in the way of that? The other kids probably did something to make them mad, and honestly should know better. The child thinks this is completely normal. Anyone with a quirk that isn't flashy, or is considered weak, or God forbid is quirkless, is lesser than them, merely the pebbles beneath their feet. They go to hero school surrounded by other people with flashy quirks, graduate, and get their licenses. They become another endeavor, because they are better than everyone else and therefore above the law. But this doesn't just hurt the strong, this also hurts the weak. People have a villainous quirk, or they look like a monster because of their quirk, or they're weak and useless. Before quirks, every job was done by a quirkless person. They had no inherent benefits, no special powers that made them better at their jobs, nothing of the sort, but suddenly if you don't have a quirk, or you have a quirk people don't like, it's incredibly difficult to
Find a job.
Quirkless statistics state that there is a 90% unemployment rate for people without quirks. Mutant quirks boast a 70% unemployment rate, including in jobs where having a quirk doesn't actually help you at all. Weak and non-flashy quirks have a 75% chance to be passed over in favor of stronger quirked individuals even when they have better credentials. Since when did your DNA determine how good you would be at a job? When did we start looking past talent, experience, and aptitude for our hiring practices? If someone goes to medical school to become a doctor but looks like a bug, should we deny them the ability to work as a doctor despite having their medical license? Are people less human for whatever quirks they may or may not have? All in all, the more people focus on quirks, the more our society gets hurt. We should be held accountable for our actions and abilities, not the special power we were born with, or lack thereof. We are all human, and we all deserve a chance to do what we love. Signing off for now.
Green bean.
Izuka grinned as he shut his computer down for the night. Yes, everything was coming along very nicely. He couldn't wait for it to all fall into place.
Notes.
Everything after the signing off is brought to you by my wife. I have a 10-step plan we will be working through to take down the HC, and we'll get some kids on the way and see more Nezu and Izuka friendship, also probably some games. Also, welcome to Social Psych. LMAO couldn't give you the full semester because not everything applied to the situations, but the availability heuristic is probably one of the most commonly referenced things. LMAO. Chapter 16. A Party and a Plan.
Summary.
We have a birthday party, get another kid, and also start steps 3 to 5 on the World Domination checklist. 1 and 2 are done, fear not. Notes. I'm not even kidding about the checklist BTW. I have a 10-step plan. See the end of the chapter for more notes. They were planning Himiko's 12th birthday when she tugged on Ochako's sleeve. No, Chico, can we invite my cousin? Ochako felt her brow crinkle. Your cousin? Himi nodded. Yeah. I forgot about him for a while, but I kind of remember him, and he was nice. I don't think I've seen him in a long time. So, I was wondering if he could come to my birthday party. Ochako shrugged. I don't see why not, but we have to find him first. Do you know how old he is? She bit her lip. I dunno, he was 5 last time I saw him, but I can't remember how old I was. He lived in another prefecture, so we didn't get to see him or auntie or uncle that often. Ochako hummed. I think Izuku guessed you ran away from home when you were 9, so he would at least be 8 now, even if the last time you saw him was right before you left. Were you older or younger than him? Hime blinked, thinking. Older? I think so. Then he's between 8 and 11. Do you remember anything else about him? Hime flopped onto the couch, swinging her feet. He was blonde, like me, but his eyes weren't yellow, they were blue. I think I called him Aichan. Ochako nodded, face set in determination. Okay, now we just gotta figure out who he is so we can invite him to your birthday party. Yeah, Hime cheered, giving a fanged grin. Ochako whipped out her phone and scrolled through her contact until she found the one she was looking for. Izuku, we need your help finding Himiko's cousin so we can invite him to her birthday party. Okay? How much information do you have already? A nickname, an age range, and a basic description. Yeah, I can work with that. Send me what you have. Thanks, Izuku. You're the best. She hung up and texted out the details, sticking her tongue out of the corner of her mouth. And sent. Now we just wait for him to work his magic and find her cousin, Aichan. Hime giggled. Bush is pretty smart at this stuff. Ochako made a noise of agreement. Okay, who else are we inviting? Well, the whole gang. Hugmaster and Bomberanian, Purple and Bird Boy. Oh, and Birdie and Crispy, and all of Crispy's siblings too. And Grandma and the Lizard Boy. Am I forgetting anyone? She pressed a finger to her chin. Nope, pretty sure that's it. Bird Boy is Kuji and Birdie is Kigo, right? Yeah. Then, yeah, that's everyone. Okay, so that's who we're inviting. What type of cake do you want? Hime bit her lip. There's not a blood cake, is there? Nope, but there is red velvet. Explodey doesn't like it, but he doesn't have to have any. Golden eyes widened. Red velvet.
Yup.
It's super red. Pretty sure it's a chocolate cake base?
Maybe?
I dunno, I don't bake. She sat up straight. It usually has cream cheese icing, which is tart and delicious. Then, let's have that. Ochako grinned. Okay. Now, where to have it? She leaned forward, yelling into the house. Mr. Can we have the party in the park? Yeah, sure. Thank you. Okay, so if you want, we can have the party in the park. It might be hot because it's August, but then we can run around and play. Hime nodded. I want to play with you guys. Bomberanian sounds like a fun villain to play against. She giggled. Yep, he really he takes it way too seriously and makes scary explosions. She leaned in and whispered, don't tell him they aren't really scary or he'll pout and stop playing. Hime snickered and nodded solemnly. Ochako's phone dinged. She checked the message and grinned, moving the phone in her friend's face. Is this him? Her eyes widened, and they shared a grin.
Yes.
That's Aichan. And now to find him. Ochako forwarded the text to Kuji with an added message. Ochako, can you find this kid for me and Hime? Kuji 3. Yeah, why? Ochako. He's Hime's cousin. Ochako. We're inviting him to the birthday party, but need a way to get messages to him. Ochako. So if you could find his address, that'd be swell. Kuji 3. Yeah, I'll put out a notice in his area. Kuji 3. If you give me an extra invitation with, hopefully, an explanation letter to him, then I can deliver it too and save the postage. Ochako. OMG Kuji you. Re the best. Kuji 3. LOL thanks. And done. All we need to do now is pick the time, make these invitations, and get them out. The rest of us will handle decorations. Hime pouted. But I wanted to help with decorations. Hime, she laughed. It's your party. You can't see the decorations until it's time. Ugh, fine. Don't worry, I know what you like. It's gonna be great. Himiko grinned at her friend, pink dusting her cheeks. Yeah, Nito was generally a suspicious person. You had to be, with a quirk like his. No one really liked him, so any advances had to be taken with a grain of salt and a healthy dash of skepticism. It saved him from getting hurt. He had noticed the influx of birds, the little brown ones, and they seemed to be watching him. Okay, maybe someone was going to play a prank on him, but none of them had pooped on him yet, so maybe the birds were just being weird. Maybe he had accidentally copied the quirk of someone who was incredibly appealing to birds, and the scent or whatever had stuck around even once the copy had worn off. Maybe they thought his hair was straw, good for building nests. And then a slightly bigger bird flew over him and dropped an envelope on him. He scowled in the direction the bird had gone and bent to pick it up, thinking it had stolen someone's mail, and decided to lay the blame on him. The least he could do was see if it was anyone nearby, so he could immediately give it back and save them all the trouble. It was addressed to him. Okay, now he was almost certain that the birds were working against him, but when he looked up to glare at them, they were gone. Other than a few flying in the distance, every single bird that had been following him had disappeared. He frowned, looking back at the envelope. He slid a finger under the flap and tore it open. Inside were two different things, a card and a folded piece of paper. The note card was more colorful, so he looked at that first. You're invited. Mustafa Park, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., to celebrate the birthday of Sekijiro Himiko. That name seemed familiar. Maybe an old classmate? Odd that they would invite him, and by bird, no less. The invitation also said that you didn't need to bring a gift, but Nito was still confused. Well, piece of paper time. He unfolded it and stopped in shock as he read the first line. Dear Eni-chan.
Himi-chan.
Izuka sent the information back to Uraraka, silently wishing her and Himiko the best at finding her cousin, and turned back to his laptop, seated in Nezu's office. So Nezu, I've been doing research into the various criminal organizations in Japan. And what have you discovered, Izuku? So there's a lot of gangs, not really considered villains as they are small-time criminals, but a few of them will probably need heroic intervention. There's also a really big shadow organization that I'm decently sure is the guy who hurt All Might 2 years ago, since they had a dip in productivity around that time. Then there's the Yakuza, which I would normally categorize as small-time criminals, but they also have way more money and power. Nezu hummed, sipping his tea. I see. May I ask why you've been researching them?
He sighed.
As much as we hate the Hero and Public Safety Commission, they're a cornerstone of society and arguably our basis of government. If we dismantle either or both to put in better policies and order, there will be a time in between it being bad and it being good where there's a lot of chaos. Anarchy, I guess. Even if we have full public support, criminals and villains will see that as the time to rise up, band together, and try to take power. I see. And I'm assuming you're trying to come up with a plan to stop that? MHM. Nezu took another sip, leaning back in his chair and focusing his full attention on Izuku and the conversation. Very well, do you have any ideas? Well, off the top of my head, all we have to do is get rid of them, or at least significantly weaken them before we make the push on the commission. I guess we could always build a case against them and let the government do its job, but that not only puts unnecessary pressure and risk on heroes, but will make people view the government in a favorable light, which will hurt us in the long run. Izuku perked up, eyes flashing, and he grinned at his friend. But if we could make them destroy each other, then we don't have to worry about that. They can take care of themselves. Nezu chuckled. True enough. I imagine it would be difficult to arrange that, however. Izuku furrowed his brow. Yeah, but I can plan how I want things to go in the meantime, and then figure out how to get them to do it later. Fair enough. Do keep me updated, Izuku. Of course. Himiko was really excited for her party. They had commandeered a few picnic tables in the park, and she was sitting at one, swinging her feet back and forth. Today, she turned 12, so in 2 years she could go to UA if she wanted. She could already visit, of course, like all of Bush's friends, but she had recently been looking at schoolwork and she just found it fun. It was hard for sure since she was pretty behind, but Cheiko and the rest would come by to help explain the things she didn't get. She was really good at science, as it turned out, but absolutely terrible at everything else, so when she needed a break, she would work on science to make herself feel better. biology and chemistry, mind you, since physics was really just math but only the word problems. But today she didn't have to think about school because today was her birthday. Himiko was super excited to see all her friends again, even if it hadn't been that long. Cheiko was already there, and Bird Boy was absolutely covered in wildlife, whispering to each other and no doubt checking all his connections, since he was occasionally shooting off texts to probably Bush. Bush was working on some really big things with Nezu, the little mouse man who was also the principal, and Bird Boy was helping him get all the fun information he needed. Just like when they found Himiko. Crispy came with Grandma, Lizard Boy, and Birdie, and he was definitely riling up Birdie. Himiko giggled and ran over to give Grandma a hug. "I'm so glad you came," Grandma chuckled. "Of course, my dear. Dobby, I swear to God dash. Oh, sorry, did I ruffle your feathers?" She giggled again. "Crispy, stop riling him up." Crispy immediately looked affronted and rounded on Birdie. "Kigo, did you teach her that god-awful nickname?" Birdie was trying not to laugh. "No, she taught it to me." Himiko gasped. Hugmaster was here, with purple. She bounded over and extended her arms wide before pouncing on the really tall boy and melting into his hug with a sigh. "Hello to you too." She giggled and looked out from the mesh of arms. "Purple, you don't like physical affection." He raised his eyebrows. "Still upset, I didn't even get a hello." She extracted herself from Hugmaster and gently placed a hand on top of Purple's head. He leaned into it and she giggled. "You're like a cat." He nodded solemnly. "That is the highest compliment I have ever received." "Thank you. And if you really try, I bet you can create steam and water no problem, so really, you have almost 4 elements at your disposal dash." Little Green. Crispy strolled over, hands in his pockets. "Please stop traumatizing my baby brother." Bush blinked and looked at the Peppermint Boy. "Oh no, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to." Peppermint Boy blinked. "I wasn't traumatized. It was nice." Crispy grabbed onto Peppermint and their 2 siblings, escorting them away from Bush. "Don't be fooled. Soon enough that kid is gonna rule the world." "Oh, I didn't think I had told anyone that plan." "Wait a minute, I was joking. Do you mean to tell me dash?" "What is up, fuckers? The party has arrived." Himiko giggled and bounded over to her latest guest. Hi. You're almost the last one to arrive." Bomberanian sniffed and turned up his nose. "It's called being fashionably late." She rolled her eyes. "Yeah, okay, now go join the others. We're about to start." She hung back a bit, smiling brightly, as the gathered people talked. These were all her friends. She had so many friends, and they were all so nice in their own ways, and none of them thought she was weird, and everything was perfect. Even Mr. Kin was here, and he had let her take his last name, so she didn't have to think about her old parents. "Himi?" She froze and slowly turned around. A blonde boy stood there, looking as shocked as she felt. Is it really you?" She nodded, eyes wide. "You got so big, Ai-chan." "Yeah, it's been almost 6 years. I've more than doubled in age." He shifted on his feet. "You look better." She smiled, eyes still staring. "Thanks. I feel better. I've met really nice people, and they helped me." "I know you said, in your letter." He seemed to shake himself out of his daze, and raised an eyebrow. "What was with that bird DLVRY system anyway?" She snorted, and leapt forward to drag him to the party. "That was Bird Boy. Come on, I'll introduce you to everyone." She didn't mention the tears in her eyes, and mercifully, he didn't either. All for One was reasonably annoyed. Not destroy a city ward annoyed, but certainly kill a minion to relieve stress annoyed. A crucial difference that said minions were sure to make careful note of. The reasons he was annoyed were numerous. For one, All Might had come back from his vacation looking better than ever. All for One had hoped that the vacation was really a ploy from his agency because they didn't know how to break it to the public that he had died, but no such luck. It seemed as if the buffoon had actually taken the time to get better, which seemed completely unlike him. He was sure he had gotten the man good, but aside from reduced hours the first few months after his return, the #1 hero seemed back in business like he had never taken a vacation in the first place. It was annoying. Another irritant was the Shimura boy. Oh yes, he had completely forgotten about his past and his old name, and he had a burning hatred for heroes that had all for one smirking, but he was also childish in more ways than one, and the cost of replacing all the things he destroyed with his quirk was, while inconsequential, not unnoticeable. God, he would throw a fit every other day, it felt like, and something or someone would pay the price. Honestly, if he hadn't already invested so much into the boy already, he would probably have called it quits years ago. Every month, Tamura tested that resolve. It was annoying. For another, he'd gotten rumors that a lot of the small-time gangs and the Yakuza of yesteryear, because let's be honest, they were a shadow of what they once were, had started teaming up to take control of the underground, which was unacceptable. All for One was an emperor, not some king who could be so easily overthrown. A well-placed bribe here, a stolen quirk there, and he had his subjects chipping away at them so that when they finally got too big for their britches, it would all come crumbling down. It was a slide of good fortune that one of his informants had overheard one of the gangs talking about the rumors, thinking about joining up. To think that even rival gangs were looking past history in the name of power was insulting, honestly. There was only one top dog, and it was him.
It was
annoying. On the other hand, that anonymous journalist had completely destabilized public opinion on heroes and taken out the number 2, a big player and major obstacle. He almost wanted to find the writer and thank them for setting his plans even further in motion. Perhaps he could do that after he became Emperor of Japan. It would be child's play to find the journalist, but they had published anonymously, so he'd let them maintain that illusion of privacy for a little while yet. Then again, the journalist had also started posting about quirks, and it was also quite annoying. The things they talked about were all true, of course, but All for One didn't want the public to know and believe that. People with powerful quirks putting down those with weak or villainous quirks were practically the cornerstone of his hiring practices, and for that to be disrupted was a thorn in his side. A small thorn, but a thorn all the same. It was only one article, but because everyone knew of this green bean already, while it would have been dismissed out of hand mere months ago, now people already considered it. It was annoying. But oh well, it was one journalist, and he had more pressing matters to deal with. Eventually, society would come crawling back to what it knew, which was quirk supremacy. How odd to live through the time when quirks were a death sentence, and now, it's completely the opposite. People would fall in line because they craved power, more than comfort, more than safety, more than knowledge, more than anything. Everything would go his way in the end, and he had all the time in the world.
Notes.
AFO is such AD. He's so fun to write, like wow, what an a-hole. Take your ego down a few hundred notches, my guy. Anyways, steps 3 to 5 are going well. See you next time. Also, I may or may not have impulsively started a new FIC, so check out my profile for Of Spirits and Demons if you want LOL. It's been added to the rotation at the request of the Discord. Chapter 17. A Mystery Solved. Summary. We go back to our roots and play another board game, and then see things from another side. Then we finish it off with some crack courtesy of the Discord server LMAO. Notes. The game is only mentioned by name at the very end of its segment, but it's called Mysterium and I really enjoy it myself. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Bring 5 to 6 of your closest friends on Saturday. Best wishes. Smiley face. Oh boy. Nezu had no earthly idea why Izuku had sent out a summons to 6 of them, but he wasn't entirely concerned. Sure, Izuku could be terrifying, but not to his friends, so unless this was a meeting to sniff out a traitor, all of them would be fine. And none of them were stupid enough to be a traitor, not this late in the game. He met with Hitoshi, Bakugo, Kuji, and Shudo at the gates of UA. Ochako had been invited too, but she had already made plans with Himiko and Nito for the 3 of them to hang out, so she couldn't make it. Izuku bounded up to them from the sidewalk. Sorry I'm late, I was trying to figure out the code and lost track of time. Bakugo raised an eyebrow. What FING code? Izuku grinned. Nezu sent me a letter, which is why I asked you guys to come here, but he was super vague, so I figured he might have hidden a secret message in code. I have no idea why he wanted you guys here. Nezu took it back. If Nezu was really the one who had summoned them, then this was a whole different ballgame. He was suddenly and reasonably concerned. "Welp, let's go in." Izuku skipped forward, forcing the other 5 to follow, and Nezu exchanged a glance with Hitoshi. The other boy looked more awake than he had a few minutes ago. They made it all the way to Nezu's office before the door swung open, revealing Nezu. The mediums have arrived. Thank you for answering the call. I do hope you can be of assistance." Izuku blinked, then broke out into a grin. "It's a game," he whispered to the gathered group. "You see," Nezu continued, sending a wink Izuku's way, "I have recently discovered a ghost haunting these very halls, and I was hoping that you fine psychics would be able to help me determine how the poor thing died. Do you think yourself up to the task?" Izuku looked back with a beaming grin, and they all nodded in agreement. This sounded pretty fun, actually. "Excellent." He clapped his paws together. "Then please follow me to where the ghost is most present." The ghost has terrible amnesia, you see, but I was able to identify everyone who passed through the area in the time frame of their death, and they should be able to remember who was there with your help, as well as the location of their death and the murder weapon, of course. He swept into one of the meeting rooms where there was indeed a game set up. At one end of the table was a screen, hiding things from view, and next to it was a large stack of large cards. Nezu plopped himself in the chair and winked. "I would have had one of you be the ghost, but since Miss Uraraka had prior engagements, I will have to fill the role myself. Please take a seat at one of the mediums, and I can explain the game." Izuku sat down at the yellow-colored medium. Bakugo picked black, Hitoshi picked purple, Kuda picked blue, Shudo picked white, and Nezu was left with red, which suited him fine. In the center of the table, past their little crystal ball-shaped tokens, was a broken clock, and 3 levels below it that were full of cards. The first row directly under the clock, which was a cardboard cutout, not a real clock, had smaller cards that all had weapons on them. Some were obvious, like a knife and a gun, but others were a candlestick, a marble bust, a rope, and a dumbbell. Below that level were artistic drawings of rooms. There was a library, a bedroom, a kitchen, a study, a garden, and so on. Below that were 7 different portraits of people, with various items scattered around the cards that indicated their profession, and such. All in all, there were 7 of each type of card, separated by a thin cardboard strip. Behind my screen, I have assigned each of the mediums a set of 3, a suspect, a location, and a weapon. There are 7 hours, or rounds, to the game, indicated by the clock you see here. Every medium has to have correctly identified their set of 3 by the time those 7 rounds are up, or we all lose. To identify, I will be giving you a number of vision cards. You see, this ghost is mute and can only communicate through sending the medium's visions. They are quite surreal, but hopefully they will give you a good indication of who or what you are looking for. He smiled. You will all start with the suspect. Then once you have that, you will put it in front of you, and your next set of visions will be for the location. At the end, if everyone has found all 3 cards, we will have a final round where the ghost will remember which of them is really the suspect, and then we will vote based on the visions given. The amount of the visions you see will depend on the amount of points you earn throughout the game. He extended a paw to the spaces in front of them. You might have noticed these little teardrop-shaped tokens you have. 3 of them have a check mark, and 3 of them have an X. When one of your fellow mediums makes a guess, you can use any or all of your tokens to indicate whether you think they are correct or not. If your token matches the outcome, you get a clairvoyancy point. The 4th turn will see your tokens returned to you, so best to use them before then. At the end, 8 clairvoyancy points will be enough for you to see all 3 visions for the final clue, so do try and aim for that. Izuku raised a hand. Can we tell people what we think their visions mean? Of course. This is a cooperative game, and you win or lose together. They were all done by the 5th round. It was a combination of trusting Izuku and knowing that Izuku also had a pretty good grasp of Nezu's head at this point that had them getting pretty good at guessing the right things. For example, Hitoshi's suspect was this old spinster-looking lady, and Izuku was quick to point out how both her card and the vision he had received had a red ball of yarn, completely ignoring the plates and mounted antlers also in the picture that made Hitoshi think of the hunter or the chef. Nezu's location was a room filled with bird cages and sheet-covered furniture. A skylight filled the room with blue and green light, and Nezu gave him 2 vision cards, which were both incredibly blue. Shudo's weapon was the shaving knife, and his vision for that included a wheat field, which, as Izuku put it, looked a lot like hair. All in all, Bakugo and Shudo were the only two who didn't get to 8 clairvoyancy points. They cleared off the table and laid out their 6 suspects, locations, and weapons, and Nezu put a circular token face down on the board. I will now give the 3 visions. For our 2 mediums who did not clear the 8-point threshold, you must vote after seeing only 2 of these visions. Each vision will apply to a different part of the story. Here we are. He flipped up the first 2, and they all immediately started, pointing things up and tying them to various suspects until they got it down to 2. The 2 boys slid their vote tokens, which were the other side of the clairvoyancy tokens, numbered 1 to 6, onto the table, and Nezu flipped up the 3rd vision. Izuku nodded. It's clear it's Shudo's. Everyone else voted. It was counted to be a majority vote for Shudo's set of cards, and Nezu flipped up the token. Congratulations, mediums. You have won and laid the poor ghost to rest. They cheered. Now that this is through and mostly everyone is here, how are things looking for our unwitting adversaries? Nezu looked around at the boys before focusing on Izuku. Well, the underground is stirring. No one's made any major moves yet, but I don't think it'll be long before they really start fighting. Izuku looks down at his phone when it dings before adding, and Ko-chan says the commission is buzzing like a kicked beehive over Kigo. Kuji nods beside Mezu. They don't seem to know how to deal with us ignoring them and stealing their golden egg, but I'm not sure if they know we have him. It's been months. They must have some idea. Nezu hums, excellent. Now, would one of you like to be the ghost for our next game of Mysterium? Akai Atami considered himself a careful man. When you're leading an entire gang, you have to be careful and get as much information as possible to keep your people safe and know the best places to hit. It also let you know who to not hit. Some people in the underground would give you major shit if you so much as glanced at them wrong, and those rumors were arguably the most precious to Akai. Rumors of heroes were helpful, but his gang was tight-knit. They could get past some heroes. The Yakuza, rival gangs, or the FING boogeyman were not things they could easily get past. Some were easy. For the Yakuza, just note their territory and be polite if you can. They have some pretty heavy hitters even if they're a shadow of what they once were, and they have money. Good to be on their good side. For rival gangs, it was kind of the same, but you really didn't want to give other gangs a reason to fight you, it just hurt both of you. And then there was the FING boogeyman. Akai had heard of him, of course. All the big fish in the underground talked about him, spreading rumors and catching information, but Akai had never had the misfortune to meet the guy. According to myth and legend, he had been around since the dawn of quirks, which seemed impossible, but Akai figured it was something of a legacy position, like the Dread Pirate Roberts from that ancient, but excellent, movie the gang sometimes put on for movie nights. The dude could give and take quirks, which SCKD Major D dash, because they needed those in general. If you made him mad, you would disappear and never come back. Not even a body, you were just gone. So, understandably, Akai was worried when one of his informants let him know the boogeyman was making a move to take over the entire underground and wipe out every gang and Yakuza that didn't belong to him. Naturally, he contacted his allies, told them to contact their allies, and called an emergency meeting under the flag of truce. Surprisingly, a lot of people showed up. The invitation said leaders or representatives and one other, and pretty much everyone had adhered to that. Gangs who hadn't got given the stink eye in the crowded warehouse and quickly sent their extras outside. Everyone perched on crates and the floor, making it almost seem like a coliseum with an empty center for whoever decided they wanted to take the stage. Why did you call us together, snakes? Akai stood up with a sigh. We have word the boogeyman is making a move that serves to put all of us under. How under? 6 feet. A grumble went up, but Mori of the Flying Fish spoke up. I heard those rumors as well. Do you think there's any credit to them? Akai nodded. People have started to disappear. If this all for one really wanted us gone, he could do it, but he's being quiet about it for now. Maybe he thinks we won't catch on in time, and he can officially wipe everyone else out. The room quieted with a deep hum, and Akai tensed to recognize the elderly leader of the Shy Hisekai, stroking his chin. We have also noted some members of the family disappearing. There is merit to this rumor after all. Golden eyes locked onto Akai's. What do you propose we do about it? Akai swallowed. I called us here under the flag of truce. If we could extend that and form a coalition to fight against the forces of All for One, we might be able to take him out first and save our skins. Once the threat is gone, all rivalries could go right back, but we need a united front against the boogeyman. Haitoni of the Black Dagger scoffed. Oh yeah, the snakes are all about harmony and holding hands. We haven't forgotten the slight from 2 months ago, when you decided to do business with the party poopers instead of us. The representatives of the party poppers bristled. Sorry we offered a better deal than the butter knives. The fighting rose for a bit more until the Yakuza raised a single hand, and it all stilled. We have the money. You all have the manpower. If we combine our resources, not even the notorious Quirk Stealer himself will be able to stop us. Golden eyes narrowed in anger. He should know better than to mess with the shy Hisakai. We are willing to be a part of this coalition. Akai breathed a sigh of relief. They were old money, old business, and with them on board, people were more likely to accept and join up themselves. In the end, only a few gangs had decided against it, either going off on their own or actively going out to join their enemy, but Akai looked at the gathered group of gangs from all over the area and the Yakuza besides, and he felt confident that All for One would regret crossing the rest of the underground. Hime had a nightmare. Can you guys distract me? Cheiko, what is your opinion on walking your pet fish? Kuji, you can't walk a fish. Hime, sounds like a good time, but wouldn't last long. Nito, wait, what? How do you walk a fish? Shudo, with great effort. Zuku, technically there are strollers with the fishbowl in, so you can. Toshi, when you fish, like to eat them. Toshi, you can leave them on a line to swim until you are done for the day. Cheiko, is water wet? Blasty, no, go the F to sleep. Toshi, is the ocean a soup? Hime, no, because soup is hot. Toshi, there are cold soups. Hime, true. Gigi, doesn't mean they're good. Cheiko, the ocean is a soup. Nito, calling the ocean a soup is cursed. Hime, not all soups are good. Toshi, not all goods are soup. Zuku, also everything is cursed tbh. Toshi, are human soup. Nito, somehow that's even more cursed. Zuku, I mean bones have proteins in them. Zuku, as do other things. Zuku, and we're mostly made of water. Cheiko, noodles. Cheiko, we're made of noodles. Kuji, yes, but we're not liquid, like soup is. Zuku, unless you have a quirk for that. Toshi, is cereal soup or overdressed salad? Blasty, I hate this FING family. Shudo, soup. Toshi, but you can eat cereal without milk though. Toshi, you can't really eat soup without the fluid. Kuji, also there's no meat or veg in it. Cheiko, cereal is noodles for the soup. Cheiko, there. Cheiko, you can have noodles without soup and cereal without milk. Cheiko, therefore. Shudo, cereal is just uncooked pasta. Nito, oh gods, we've gone into vague definitions that everyone fights over territory. Nito, no one talk about hot dogs. Zuku, cereal is technically cooked, whereas pasta is just dried before being cooked. Cheiko, exactly. Cheiko, you guys get it. Kuji, fine, cereal is pasta cooked without liquid. Cheiko, pasta and cereal both get softer in liquid. Cheiko, they're similar that way. Toshi, where would a giraffe wear a bow tie? Blasty, near the body. Toshi, not near the head? Blasty, no. Cheiko, they'd literally have a human tie it around the middle of the huge neck with a ladder or something. Kuji, where would you hide a body? Zuku, in a pig farm. Toshi, in a wetland. Zuku, pigs will eat every part of the body. Hime, in a ditch with Alton's cursed candy. Nito, who is Alton? Nito, why is his candy cursed? Shudo, I didn't know pigs ate people. Gigi, anything that gets thrown into their pens is fair game. Kuji, yeah, it's kind of horrifying tbh. Blasty, not sure how this is helping vampire chick get over her nightmare. Hime, oh no, it is. Hime, thank you guys so much. Hime, I'm all good now. Zuko, of course. Zuko, glad we could help, smiley face. Toshi, if you ever need more inane questions, I got you. Blasty, finally you guys can go the F to sleep. It's almost 2 in the morning for FS sake. Chaco, wink with tongue sticking out. Toshi, bold of you to assume I sleep. Zuko, oh no. Zuko, is it that late? Gigi, what were you doing this time? Zuko, research. Zuko, guess I lost track of time. Zuko, oh, Kuji, if you're still up, did you get that thing I needed? Kuji, it was annoying and dangerous. Kuji, but yes. Kuji, I'll deliver it to you tomorrow. Shudo, ominous. Nito, what on earth have I gotten myself into? Blasty, there's no escape, just get used to it. Blasty, I had to. Chaco, as if you weren't the first friend Izuku had. Blasty, shut your dimmin' mouth and go to bed. Zuko, good night. Zuko, or morning, or whatever.
Notes.
My wife brought that conversation, which happened in real life, to my attention, and I could not include it because it is absolutely something they would talk about all Mayo. Names. Akai Itami means red pain, as a direct relation to his quirk. Mori means lance or harpoon. Hitoni means literally nothing important. That name is cobbled together LMAO. Chapter 18. A peanut butter and honey sandwich. Summary. I would like to remind you of the game BS. That is all.
Notes.
Also, we got another meme thanks to my wonderful perfect Discord LOL. I kept forgetting to put this in. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Izuku looked at the papers spread before him and his friend. Nezu, do you think this is enough? He hummed. To take them down completely, no, but to make the first move for certain. Which case would you like to use to open negotiations? Izuku tapped his chin. The Endeavor case was good, but we've already unearthed and publicized almost everything in that case, so that won't have as much of a punch. Kigo is one of our biggest guns, the linchpin, but it would certainly get them scared, and maybe we could use it to get more minor cases out. Nezu picked up a paper, sipping tea from his other paw. Perhaps the Endeavor case has merit after all. People were suspicious that the government and the commission in particular were silencing you. It went away, of course, when they took the case, but another article to bring it up would send them right back into the spotlight. Izuku grinned and nodded. True. They were covering up the scandal of someone giving the heroes negative press. We can use that. He picked up another paper. The article on Razor Sharp was the first one that got attacked, but people kept reposting it. He was only a sidekick of a top 50 hero, but they still tried to keep it on the down low. Do you think they knew what I was doing? I wouldn't give them that much credit, Nezu chuckled. There are few people who are both paying attention and smart enough to make the connection. I have no doubt someone in the commission has figured it out, perhaps even the president herself, but there is nothing they could do about it but try to take down the articles, and we both saw how well that turned out. Izuku giggled. Do you think you can get us a meeting with the president next week? Nezu pet his head. Is next week not the 15th? Izuku grinned. What better way to celebrate turning 12 than starting the plan? Nezu bared his teeth in a smile that normally sent people running, but Izuku just smiled back. Yes, the principal murmured. That does sound like an excellent idea. Let me make some calls, and I would be more than happy to look over your game plan when you have it. Izuku beamed. Thanks, Nezu. Sejito Ranyu considered herself above all others. She had a position of power, a legion of lackeys to carry out her plans, and taxpayer money to fund them. She had government backing and almost full autonomy, and she was directly in charge of the entire hero community, which in turn made her the de facto leader of society. Sure, she wasn't the face of the nation, but she was the puppet master, holding all the strings. A careful tug here, and turn of the handles there, and things went almost exactly how she wanted them to. There were 3 exceptions. The first was Hawks, who had miraculously disappeared one day after his training. He was most certainly in no state to move, according to his handlers, and camera footage held that to be true. He was apparently lugged out by 2 individuals, one tall and the other exceptionally short. They had carefully never shown their faces, but she had a good and relatively clear picture of the tops of their heads, and one was incredibly curly. The other had an outward and obvious mutation that gave him multiple arms. A quick search of the quirk database only came up with some kid, someone who was 11 nowadays, but that made no sense, so they were probably looking at a criminal who was completely off the record. If she had to guess, she would assume they were tied to her second exception, all for one. The government had a tentative relationship with the man, since he could absolutely wipe them out if he wanted to, and they really didn't want that to happen. In return for looking the other way on some of his more hidden crimes and the occasional hint at a villainous, quirked child that would mysteriously disappear a week later, he would, for the most part, leave them alone. Of course, if he or any of his followers were blatantly caught doing something wrong, the commission would have no choice but to punish him for that, but it was much easier on both sides to just cover things up. Like his fight with All Might 4 years ago. All Might was one of the few they had never been able to control, what with how popular he was, and someone had let slip to the buffoon that All for One was going to be there, the idiot. Of course, then the hero immediately plunged off to avenge his mentor, nearly getting himself killed. Sure, they didn't like him. BTU, he was useful in pushing their agenda, and he was the poster boy of heroics. The third exception was probably not as dangerous as All for One, but he was certainly not one to be trifled with, and that was Nezu. An experiment that had broken out. It could never be revealed that the commission had paid for said experimentation, but Ranyu had a sneaking suspicion that the rat knew anyway and was simply biding his time. When he fought for citizenship, they had no choice but to give it to him. He was smarter than every single lawyer they had. The commission had made a hasty decision to offer him UA, their top hero school, so that he would have something to occupy his time that wasn't planning their demise. Maybe he'd find it amusing and wouldn't destroy them. Plus, it kept an eye on him. He was in the public eye and couldn't exactly do anything rash, no matter that he had a hero license, without the public knowing it. And if the public knew it, the commission did, and that was something they could use to keep him in line. The animal hated being caged, so he wouldn't risk that. When her third exception requested a meeting with her on the 15th of July, she reluctantly cleared her schedule and sent back a confirmation. Hopefully it would be something silly like changing the entrance exam again or implementing a new program in something or other, and she could give him the usual reasons and send him away. But if it was something like that, why didn't he just send an email? Her phone rang, and she picked it up. Mr. Nezu is here. Send him up. And he dash. She hung up, not really catching those last words, lost in her head. She threaded her fingers together and rested her elbows on the table while she stared at the door. About a minute from the lobby to her door, so any moment now. The door opened and she stood, ready to greet him, but the words died in her throat as a Cully Green head poked in. Kid, how did you dash? Oh no, forgive me, President, he's with me. I had assumed your secretary would warn you, but alas. Nezu came in right behind the literal child who was only about 6 inches taller than the animal and hauled himself up onto a chair. The boy bowed, and she startled, almost missing his name. Midoriya Izuku, ma'am. Nice to meet you. She knew that head of curls. She stiffly sat back down in her chair. Sejito Ranyu, President of the Hero Public Safety Commission. What is this meeting about? Nezu smiled as the boy sat in the other seat, pulling out a folder she hadn't seen him carrying. The green-headed boy grinned, all sharp. We are here to reach an understanding. She didn't like how he said that word. She raised an eyebrow. An understanding? Do tell, little boy. His smile faltered slightly, but he continued. Well, you see, my name is Midoriya Izuku, but you might recognize me better by my pen name. His eyes flashed, making them poisonous. Green bean. He nodded, all smiles, and she felt her heart beat faster. This was about to go very, very wrong. You see, Ms. President, he hummed, a few of my articles got, well, taken down. Censored, if you will, by your people. She swallowed, trying to remain calm. I can assure you, none of my people would limit the press like that dash. So this signed order wasn't from you? Is there another President Sejito I don't know of? Her eyes flicked to the folder, where the boy was looking, but she couldn't see inside. How the F had a kid gotten a copy of? Her eyes shot over to the grinning rat. There has been a misunderstanding. The boy nodded graciously. You're right, there has. For a moment, She breathed easier. We aren't just here for talk. We're here for compensation. Bennett. She sighed, pursing her lips. We can release a public statement, apologizing for retracting the articles, of course. We merely wanted to keep society stable. He grinned. Did you? But no, that's not what we want, honest. She tensed, fidgeting in her leather-backed chair. Funny, it usually makes her feel so important. Right now, she feels like a kid in the principal's office getting scolded. She feels small. And, what do you want? He hummed, as if he was considering, but he had absolutely come prepared with what he wanted. 2 things, really. The first is simple. Stop pulling my research findings. Oh, was that what they were calling them now? And eventually the public will forget the government ever tried to censor me. Easy enough. The second, well, is that you turn over any heroes under the top 50. She narrowed her eyes. Hand over. He nodded. Let me dig up their scandals that you have covered up, and stop covering them up in general, so that they can see justice. The people deserve that. And it would make excellent news, she muttered bitterly. The boy shrugged. I only published the truth. The only opinion piece I ever published was the one on strong quirks, but I do like to stick to informational pieces, if I can. Gives me more credibility. She ground her teeth. Is that all? He smiled.
Yep.
Now, if you could sign both of these contracts, stating you agree to the terms dash. Contracts. He nodded, eyes wide and innocent. Yes, it's the same contract both times, a copy for you and a copy for me, so we have a legally binding agreement. Nezu has agreed to be our witness, and I have permission from my mother to enter into a contract at this age. But don't worry. My part of the contract says that I will never target a hero above the top 50, and I won't call the commission out for censoring the press and free speech. He leaned forward with wide eyes, looking concerned. Imagine if the public found out what you had done. I don't think your people would ever hear the end of it. She risked a glance at Nezu, but the FING rat was just sitting there serenely, watching this all play out. Fine, she snapped. Give me the contracts. He smiled and handed her 2 sheets of paper. She was tempted to rip them up, but who knows what the kid would do then, let alone the rodent. She snatched a pen off the cup on her desk and skimmed the contract. The details were laid out exactly as he said. He wouldn't go after the top 50, he wouldn't accuse the HPSC of what they had done, and in return, no one affiliated with the HPSC or the government could seek to take down his articles, and they would no longer cover up the crimes, big or small, of any hero under the top. She signed both papers. Great, the kid chirped, sliding one back into the folder and snapping it closed. Then I think we're all done here. They both got up to leave, Nezu having said nothing past claiming the boy as his own. Wait. They both looked back just as they reached the door. Where is Hawks? The brat had the audacity to blink and pee his head. Who? I know you took him, she hissed. So where is he? He shook his head. I'm sorry, I don't know anyone called Hawks. Did you lose a pet bird? She pursed her lips. Fine, but we know, and we'll get him back. He grinned. Best of luck. The door shut behind them, and she flopped into her chair, looking at the Demon contract. There were 4 exceptions. Kigo immediately pounced on Izuku as soon as he stepped into the teacher's lounge. How did it go? Izuku waved the folder, revealing the single piece of paper inside. We got a signed contract. I am free to publish, and if they take down any articles, we will destroy them. He sounded way too cheerful to be saying such a thing, but Kigo really didn't care. How the hell did you get her to sign? She's a hard ass. Nezu chuckled. A clever ploy by Izuku. He looked up government regulations and bluffed. Kigo looked at the cheekily grinning boy. You bluffed the president of the Hero Commission, and you were successful? Holy shit, Zooks, you're insane. Thank you. The boy gave an exaggerated bow. I really am. What did you even use to bluff her? Nezu chuckled. Like I said, a general knowledge of government regulations goes a long ways. Izuku beamed. To remove an article, you need a signed order from a higher-up legalizing you to do it. Sure, it doesn't look good to the public, but they generally don't know. Because it's not something they do often, you have to get a signed order to be absolutely sure, because if word gets out, it could be disastrous. I told her we found a copy of this order form and we would release it to the public. And she bought it? Izuku shrugged. Peanut butter? Kigo paused for a moment before doubling over. Holy shit, you lied to the president and got away with it. Zooks, you are Bat's hit. He giggled. Thanks, Kigo. Nezu chuckled. On a slightly more worrisome note, they identified Izuku from what I can only assume to be security footage, and thus have connected him to your disappearance. If you wish, we can have Dabi attend to the phone more often so they do not catch on, as it were. Kigo shook his head. Nah, no need. It's not like they can just bust in here, and I'm pretty sure the teachers would riot if they tried. Plus, with any luck, they won't notice the loophole Zooks put in the contract until he's already published the article and they burn themselves to the ground. Nezu nodded. Quite so. That means it is my turn to make a move. Izuku smiled and looked up at Kigo. Don't worry, we'll be ready to make a solid move within the year. Kigo grinned and ruffled his hair. No rush, Greenie. Taking down the government is hard work. He giggled. For some. Notes. Can anyone tell me the loophole they bow to use to destroy the commission? Winky face. Chapter 19. A plan set in motion. Summary. We see what Nezu is up to. Notes. Special thanks to my girlfriend, wife, and beta reader for giving me all these wonderful people. I came up with literally one of these names. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Redacted. Is this Shikaku? Shikaku. Who is this? Redacted. Would you say you dislike your job? Shikaku_J. This is the work chat, so you must be someone internal. Not falling for this, HR. Redacted. Oh no. I can assure you that I am not in the commission. Redacted. I would go as far to say I am against the commission. Redacted. You recently had a certain paper pass your desk, to check for legality, I believe, signed by the president and a journalist. Redacted, and I know you haven't had the chance to put it in the system, bury it under dead links and call it public as all company contracts are legally required to be, so you might be wondering how I know this, seeing as it has only been through 3 people in the commission, one of which was the president and another was yourself. Shikaku_J. I'm assuming you're this third person then? Redacted. Oh no. Not in the slightest. I am a third party. Redacted. Not an impartial one, of course. Shikaku_. What's your game? Redacted. My original question, my dear clerk. Redacted. Would you say you dislike your job? Shikaku_J. Yeah, but my contract's almost up, and it pays well anyway. Redacted. If I offered you an opportunity to, perhaps, rebel and end your contract early, earning you the respect you deserve, would you be interested? Shikaku_J. This feels like a scam. Redacted. I understand why you might think that. Redacted. Very well. Redacted. I am Nezu. Redacted. I'm sure you've heard of me. Smiley face. Shikaku_. Commission enemy number 1, huh? Shikaku_. So, why come to me? Shikaku_J. I'm a low-level clerk who everyone dumps their sheet on. Redacted. Precisely. Redacted. How many classified documents would you say cross your desk, despite you not having the clearance? Shikaku_J. 2, FING many. Redacted. How delightful. Redacted. How would you feel about making a deal? Yamada Hizashi got waved in by Kigo, their secretary of many months who occasionally stopped into heroics classes and was definitely flirting with the janitor. He was getting off track. None of that was important right now. He opened the door to Ned's office to see the diminutive principal typing on his computer. Ominous. Yamada. He sat back, gesturing to a seat and grinning. Good of you to join me. As you might be aware by now, Izuku and I have been working on a project, and we are at the stage where it is a good idea to get people on board, as it were, and to inform them as to what is to come. Hizashi swallowed, feeling sweat on his forehead. If Izuku was involved, it wouldn't be that bad, right? And what project would this be? Ned's grin got a little sharper, and he chuckled. Why, world domination. Excuse me? Asuma Kintachi. The man tensed. That depends, he muttered, not turning around quite yet. Who's asking? There was a chuckle, and he forced himself to turn around. He almost dropped his groceries in surprise. There were two people there, one only legally. The shorter of the two was easy to recognize to anyone who knew anything, especially in Kintachi's line of work. Standing at under 3 feet, dressing in a suit and sneakers, pale white fur and a scar over his eye, was Nezu. He examined the other person, still short compared to normal adult standards, but not overly so. His hands were in the pockets of his tan jacket, and his blonde hair was pushed under a baseball cap, sunglasses covering the bottom half of golden eyes. "Hey," he greeted. "It's been what, 10 years?" A single red feather poked out of his jacket and waved. Kintachi paled. "Kokigo? You. The man boy, this was a boy, grinned. "Yeah, you never did get in the habit of calling me Hawks, did you? Guess that's why they transferred you. Only name I actually remember, only one I ever wanted to. You look good, Asoma." How did you dash?" Nezu hummed. A mutual friend discovered him and removed him from his living situation. "But that is not why we came to talk to you today." Kintachi straightened up. "I had no choice. You have to believe me, Dash." "Relax." Kigo held up his hands. "It's not about that." "Well, it kind of is, but it's nothing bad, trust me. We just want to see if we can maybe help each other out." "What do you mean?" "Well," Nezu chirped, "why don't you take those groceries home, and we can talk there?" He shook his head. "If you want to get listened to, sure. I'm sure you know that all commission workers deemed a risk are never quite alone." "I did not." "More things to add to the list, I suppose. Is there a place we can meet?" "I imagine our offer will be quite appealing to you, what with what happened to Kigo here, and what you no doubt see in your new position." He tensed. "It's been a decade. Why come now? Why wait all this time to make your move?" Nezu smiled, and Kigo chuckled. "Because," the principal said, "I finally have a complete plan. Now, clerk of finance, what do you say? Do you wish to get back at them?" Kintachi clenched and unclenched his jaw. "Yes, I think I do. What can I do?" "Wonderful." Nezu clapped his paws together. "Then, to start, do you know how much money they're embezzling and from where?" He chucked humorlessly. "Do I know? I can probably give you the details from memory alone. I can arrange a meeting with your budgeting department. Just send me an invoice, and I guess I'll just have to come myself. Such a shame." Kigo snickered. "Oh yeah, Zooks will like you, Asoma. See you soon. You want to take over the world?" Nezu nodded sagely. Of course, it began as a joke, but Izuka helped point out flaws in society and then offer interesting solutions. I couldn't help looking into my tentative plans with him, and, well, we're looking to make them a reality. I hope you won't oppose me in this, Aizawa. Shoyuta dragged a hand down his face. Of course the problem child has something to do with this. When is this going to start? At the earliest, right after Izuka turns 14, at the latest, what would usually be his second semester here. So, you're saying this school will cease to exist? On the contrary, Nezu chuckled. I intend for it to persist for a good long while. Of course, with me helping Izuku run the country and eventually the world, I won't be able to be the principal, so it will find itself under new management, someone I trust and have worked with for years, someone who cares about the next generation. Shoyuta groaned and rolled his eyes as Nezu trailed off. Please no. Are you saying you aren't interested in the position? I assumed you wanted no part of the government, but if that's not the case, No, I definitely do not want to be in your government. You and the problem child are going to become dictators. I do not need to be associated with that when you inevitably get assassinated. Nezu chuckled. You say that as if it is a foregone conclusion, but you underestimate how thorough our plans are. And how are you planning on getting rid of the current government? The commission barely tolerates you as it is, and you aren't exactly a well-known political figure. No one would be fine with you just causing anarchy and then declaring yourself emperor or whatever. But you see, that is also included in the plans. Still, I would like to know that you at least will not oppose me, even if you do end up turning down the position. Shoyuta sighed. I will admit society needs change. If you can bring that about without going off the deep end and becoming a mass murderer, then sure. But, he activated his quirk with a glare. If you cross the line, Of course. Nezu was as cheerful as ever. You have a certain duty as a hero, I understand. Shoyuta grunted.
No. Oi.
Hokugusa stopped against common sense at the voice that came out of the alley. He relaxed. Dabi, how are you? Hope you're not doing anything shady in this dark alley. The teenager chuckled and walked out of the shadows. Nah, just wanted to talk to you, one janitor to another. The union giving you trouble? The scarred boy held up his hands. Nothing like that. Nothing to do with the union, but you know they don't like me, working at UA. Hokugusa snorted. A janitor is a janitor. Just because you get some pretty good benefits doesn't mean you don't need the union. Who knows? Maybe they're the only thing keeping UA from docking your pay. Hey, yeah. Anyway, just had some questions. Course. Need more tips. Nah, your old ones are still working great. Kissing the boy in the closet, are you? He sputtered, blush showing through the partially red and marred skin.
No.
That's not stop. Hokugusa chuckled. Sure. Everyone's done it at least once. What can I do for you? Dabi sighed. You know how you're always talking about how you hate your job? No, not my job. I love being a janitor. It's just where I work. Right? You hate where you work. Death Arms Agency, right? What was it called? Sucker Punch. He snorted through his scowl. Dumb name for a dumb place. God, if anyone would listen to a janitor, the amount of dirt I have on that whole DMN agency. But no. Who'd believe the broom boy over the heroes? No one. Dabi pet his head. I think I might know a guy. He stopped and blinked. You do? The teenager grinned. Yeah, and they'd love to hear any dirt on any heroes. Interested. Hokugusa considered the young janitor he had taken under his wing all those months ago. Consider me interested. Majima sighed. So you finally snapped. Nezu chortled around his tea. I did not snap, my good sir. I simply finally had what I had been missing. The little green kid. Indeed. Someone so human, yet on my level of intelligence, was just what I needed to finalize my plan. The last part to make everything click. You understand. All the gears are finally in place. And why are you telling me? Why, two things, of course. One is non-negotiable, and that is that you do not oppose us. And the other? Are you willing to work with us? You know support, and its laws like no one else, and I am afraid I do not possess the knowledge in this regard that you do. We would be rewriting the law, of course, fixing all the little errors that led society down this path. Majima frowned. What path? The path of heroes, villains, and how they both came to pass. Nezu sighed. How terrible that humans would fight other humans for traits they cannot control. I suppose they have always been doing that even before quirks, but the laws do not protect the ones who need it. As Azuka said, we must change society, so quirks do not matter nearly as much as the strength of one's character and their abilities. I'm willing to work with you on one condition. I am willing to hear you out. I want control of support laws. All of them. Nezu grinned. Of course. Good to have you aboard. Itachi Tengi was corrupt. He knew it, his friends knew it, probably the dog down the street knew it. It wasn't a well-kept secret within the government and the commission in particular, but the public of course had no idea, and he was very disarming when he wanted to be. Not literally, of course, his quirk didn't remove people's arms or weapons, but he was charming and personable. He knew how to talk to people and weasel his way into their good graces just long enough to get what he wanted, and then leave them confused as to what they had just done. Also not his quirk. His quirk was called Trusting Smile, and it planted the seed in people's heads that they should trust him. Of course, anything he did after that would determine if they actually did, but that's besides the point. He was very good at that part. It was why he had become a politician in the first place. His benefactors were well invested in him, and he, in turn, helped invest in him. When they wanted a bill passed, he sped it through, expediting its journey and padded the right pockets to make sure the votes would swing in his favor. He's been in office for many years, having many successful campaigns and never letting anyone see the darker parts of him. It was easy to lull the public into trusting him, just flash them a smile, give them some platitudes, cite his long term in office and how great things had been going, and boom, votes. The darker parts of him, of course, were where he had the most fun. What was the point in having all this bribe money if he didn't spend it on something? He could spend it on a big house, a fancy car, and all the prostitutes he could want, but eventually people would ask where he got all that money, as his persona as your humble neighborhood politician of the people would go up in smoke. He had to live in modest means, splurging here and there, but he couldn't just spend his hard-earned money without compromising himself. At least, he couldn't publicly spend his money. Black market dealings were of course on the table. Undercover ways to spend his money that couldn't be traced by their very nature, and no one would know it was him. It started with the fighting rings. They were illegal, of course, especially the ones where quirks were allowed, but that was the thrill. Bet on them, scream and yell with all the peons and other corrupt people, and if you won, great, more money to spend, and if you lost? Well, drop in the barrel. Then it went to drag dealing and trades, getting drags for people in exchange for favors and in some cases votes. His political rival found himself arrested for having copious amounts of trigger. He claimed he had never seen it, of course, but their constituents knew the truth. Would Itachi Tengi lie to them?
No.
Never. Then it got deeper. Nothing was enough. He asked around for what the biggest high was that you could get without actually doing drags. He knew what drags did, he wasn't about to chase that. That's how he found out about the trafficking ring. He didn't go often, only when he had a rock-solid alibi, and knew no one could possibly discover him. Sometimes he would give them money for their endeavors, become one of their sponsors, and sometimes he would see something he liked and buy. A quick cleanup afterwards by all the people who owed him favors, and he would be satisfied in more ways than one. No one should have been able to find out. No one should have known. So, why did he have this email? It wasn't from anyone he knew. He didn't recognize the address, and no one else knew either. He was in a rage, thinking he had been betrayed, and he emailed back, asking what they wanted, what their demands were to keep this quiet. All he got sent back was a smile. Itachi Tengi was corrupt, he knew it, but it didn't fully sink in until he was in cuffs, being led away to a police station for questioning by the famous lie detector detective. He could feel the eyes of people behind the mirror, and he screamed at them, knowing whoever sent the email was there, mocking him. He was sent to prison in a straitjacket. Well, Nezu hummed. How does your first kill feel, Shikaku? The man stretched. Drop in the barrel. Tsukachi sighed. So, I'm going to be doing this more? God. Nezu, when you said you were dismantling the government, I didn't know you meant one person at a time. Oh ho, Nezu chuckled. Soon it will all come crashing down, but we must lay the groundwork. Izuku has been a big help, but it is time to do mine. Remind me of his position in office again? It seems they need a new whatever it is, and I have been meaning to get into politics. Shikaka laughed, and Tsukachi sighed. This was only the beginning. Nezu, why did you call this emergency meeting? Nezu hummed from where he was standing on the chair at the head of the table. I'm sure you all know. The teachers exchanged glances, and Aizawa slammed his head into the table. You told everyone? Well, I wanted everyone on board. Consider this a war meeting, if you will. Kayama fidgeted. So we're really doing this? It's not a joke. Cementos sighed. It's Nezu. He wouldn't go to these lengths for a joke. Yes, he would, Snipe muttered. Ectoplasm nodded. Well, Nezu said, I am grateful you all decided to back me and Izuku. Now, let's take over the world.
Notes.
And so it officially begins. Only name that has a meaning is Hokagusa, which is the plants you use to make brooms. Hashtag Janitor Union. Chapter 20. An end of the beginning.
Summary.
Everything comes to a head, and things have officially begun.
Notes.
Smiley face. See the end of the chapter for more notes. How far are you willing to go to get the best heroes? To us, heroes means safety, and that everything is going to be okay. To villains and criminals, they mean that your time is up, and it's time to face the consequences of your actions. But how far are we willing to push them to get the results we want? As I have already said before, we view strong quirks as a one-way ticket to herodom. We eliminate all other options for them in the name of adding another hero or sidekick to the Commission's peril, another person to fight for popularity by being the best, most flashy, and most well-loved. Would you go further? Would you train these children from a young age, working them harder than a child should have to? Would you pull them out of school to train them all day long, thinking that education is pointless and won't help them be a better hero? Would you take away their individuality, get them to focus on the civilians and only the civilians? Would you have them up at the crack of dawn and down late into the night to make the most of your time? To most, these things sound horrific, as they should. For all we love heroes and strong quirks, there comes a line you don't cross, not with children, not with people. And yet, someone has. It is not a parent with their child. It is not a family member at all. It's our own dear hero and Public Safety Commission. This is the story of my friend Kigo. When he was 5, an agent took an interest in him and his quirk and offered his poor parents a substantial amount of money to essentially buy the boy. They agreed in a heartbeat to the large sum that to the commission was chump change, and Kigo was swept away, never to be seen by the public for another 13 years. He was trained, day in and day out, by handlers he didn't know the name of, all except one. This anonymous handler let Kigo sleep when he was tired, rest his bruises when they hurt too much to move, and treated him like a person. Without this handler, Kigo would have broken. And then the commission transferred them, saying they weren't getting results fast enough and were being too soft on the subject. Subject, because in the eyes of the commission, he wasn't a person, not anymore. Kigo forgot his name. They called him Hawks, what would be his chosen hero name, and in time, that became the only thing he knew. He didn't know who Kigo was, he was Hawks. He trained, day in and day out, far beyond what a normal person would do. As a result, he's shorter than he was projected to be, the intense physical labor stunting his growth. I'll spare you the more gruesome details of what he had to go through, but his life became hell. He would train his body and his quirk to be perfect. He would train on civilian interactions. He would train on mental fortitude, so he wouldn't cave under torture. All before he was even 18 years old. According to him, when he turned 18, he was supposed to debut. Analysis said he would likely climb to the top 10 within 2 years, making him the youngest hero to make it there, and most certainly the fastest climber. So, all of that for a top 10 hero. Would it have been worth it? Would sacrificing years off a child's life have been worth it for another hero? Kigo is now 20, living in hiding for fear the commission will try and take him back. He can't walk around the streets without a disguise, so chances are you might have seen him and not even realized. The people who helped him escape, bringing out his unconscious and broken body from the cell he was staying in, have provisions in place to help him. He would make a fantastic hero. I don't think anyone who knows him would doubt that. When he was allowed to show personality, he opened up and is a joy to be around, if a danger for the amount of puns and wisecracks. He has mastery of his quirk that is unparalleled. And he has no desire to be a hero. It might seem strange. Who doesn't want to be a hero these days? They get fame, glory, money, and recognition. But his desire to be a hero has been killed. Maybe in a few years, he says, if the commission gets under new management or has way more restrictions, he'll consider it. But for now, he can't even think about it without remembering that place. So I'll ask again. How far are you willing to go to get the best heroes? Green bean. Sejito Ranyu was fuming. Get that article taken down now. But ma'am, some worthless peon said, the contract forbids it. He's probably counting on that. Bring me the contract, she growled, gritting her teeth. I'm sure I can find a way. The little sheep broke it. It's been thoroughly reviewed. Since Hawks was not a hero, and not in the top 50, and since he did not comment on the commission taking down his articles, he has operated completely within the bounds of the contract. She screamed in fury. The flash of cameras hurt his eyes, but he kept a pleasant smile. And since I will be running for office, while I will not be stepping down, I will be hiring a vice principal to manage affairs while I am out and get ready for the transition if I do happen to get elected for the position. I won't be leaving UA alone, of course. It's my pride and joy. But recent news has brought certain things to light I cannot abide, and I would like to be a part of the process to change them. Are there any questions? Nezu, do you have someone in mind for the position already? And if so, who? He smiled. Of course. I do not go forward with plans until I have all the pieces on the board. As for who, we will be maintaining the standard of only having pro heroes make up our staff. Aside from that, I will not say. Nezu, given your history, how do you feel about the subject of Greenbean's most recent article? His grin got a little sharper. I might perhaps be one of the most qualified to understand what it is young Kigo had to go through, and my heart goes out to the boy, wherever he may be. It was the driving force to finally push me to attempt a hand at government. Nezu, what are your plans for if you do get elected to office? Nezu hummed. I'm so glad you asked. Nezu wandered the streets, Shuichi at his side. Between the two of them, they could take care of themselves despite being 12, and Shuichi was a couple months away from having his provisional medical license, having been helped quite a bit by his continued time at UA with Recovery Girl, but still, no one would even think about hiring him, even with that kind of credential on his record. Hey, the lizard man called out to a woman on the street. Did you hear the news? She stopped and narrowed her 6 eyes, but softened when she realized they were mutants like her. What are young boys like you doing out this late? It's dangerous, you know. Meza nodded. We know. We were just happy about the news. She pet her head, 2 of her eyes blinking. That's the 2nd time you've mentioned it. What news? Shuichi took over. Nezu is running for office, and his position is in strong support of intense discrimination laws. She sighed and shook her head, mandibles clicking together a few times. When you're 40 like me, you'll know that's what every politician says. It never amounts to anything more than vote pandering. But it's Nezu. I mean, I think a lot of people don't even consider him human. He gets us, you know. She pet her head. I suppose you're right. Do you really think he means it? Nezu shrugged, rolling his shoulders. I guess we'll just have to keep watching him to be sure, but he's certainly better than old Itachi. She snorted. Good riddance for him, I say. God, what an awful man. Anyone will be better than him. She considered it for a moment. Still, there's hope yet. I'll keep an eye on this Nezu, and my friends will do the same. Now run along home. You know it's dangerous for us when it gets dark. The 2 nodded and waved her goodbye. Well, Shuichi sighed, that's the 10th one tonight. We're a tight-knit community, so word should spread. That's a solid % of the population on our side. Meza nodded. Let us hope outreach in other groups has been the same. No sheet. Izuka nodded, beaming, and Natsuo grinned. Hell yeah, the Todoroki ruffled Izuka's curls. This kid is whip smart and is definitely going to make it big one day. Hell, you seen the views on his articles? He's the real deal. The man stroked his chin and turned to address Izuku. You talk a lot of big game, son. With your opinions, times are changing. Public opinion is changing, and for the better, I imagine. Fancy that, a quirkless kid doing all that to disrupt the order. The man guffawed and slapped his knee. You do us old folks proud, sonny. You give a good name to quirkless folk everywhere, and we're proud to call you one of our own. Keep doing what you're doing, and make this a better world for our grandchildren, Izuku beamed. Of course. When I'm done, quirks won't matter. He chuckled. I believe it. And you, old man. Natsuo pointed at himself in confusion. Yeah, you with the white hair. I hope those white hairs aren't from stress. No, I got it from my mom. Good, he nodded. Now you take care of this boy, all right? Pretty sure he can take care of me, to be honest with you. The old man waved his hand. You're older. It's your job to mentor the youth. Keep him safe for us, Natsuo agreed, choosing not to mention that Izuku regularly helped him with his own schoolwork and was definitely the mentor in this relationship. Hitoshi leaned back in his desk chair. Honestly, he had the best job. The others had to do groundwork and actually go meet people in person. Hitoshi just had to go on his regular forums. He was well known to a degree, since he had started posting helpful resources after Izuku had added him to the gang of misfits and could readily supply them, so most people took what he said at face value. Which was handy when you were talking about Nezu supporting people with villainous quirks. No one called them that outside of quotation marks, since they all knew no quirk was villainous. Green Bean's articles got reposted on the forum constantly, but they all related on a spiritual level to the bullying. Convincing them was pretty easy. Just a few links to the interviews, to his campaign webpage, and to a brief history on Nezu and the discrimination he had faced, and pretty much everyone was in agreement. Nezu would fight for them, even when no one else would. Himiko had an account too, and she would gush, super excited about some of Nezu's proposed laws. One thread turned into people talking about how they had been discriminated against and how a particular law would change that. There was some overlap with the mutant community too, some being seen as villainous for having a strange or scary appearance, and they sang his praises too. Really, Hitoshi had the easiest job. Ochako knew she and Blasty had the hardest job, probably. They were the only people in the group that had quirks considered normal or heroic. The latest article about Kigo definitely helped public opinion sway in their favor, but those who benefited from the system were hesitant to change it. After all, it worked for them, which meant they had the job of reinforcing that old article on quirks to articulate how it didn't work for them. Kigo's article could not have come at a better time because now they had a solid, concrete example of how having a strong quirk can also hurt you. It never specified his quirk in the article, and a lot of people online were speculating based on his given hero name, but it was heavily implied to be useful. To make things better, major heroes were endorsing the article, speaking out against the commission for what they had done. Ryukyu, number 9, had called the actions abhorrent and frankly morally reprehensible, which set the internet ablaze with criticisms about the commission. The more extreme speakers called for a complete dissolution of the commission, which was incredibly exciting. Ochako wasn't stupid. She knew what the end goal here was. The government was hurting people Izuku couldn't help but care about. And anyone who hurts what Izuku considers his? Well, Aldra had been shut down as soon as she and Blasty moved up to middle school. The whole chain of Aldra schools was under completely new management, and the school board had all been replaced. It was a quiet dismantling, but it was satisfying all the same. Neither of them really missed it. Now, with Nezu actively campaigning and reinforcing Izuku's points from his articles, public opinion was swaying and in their favor. Ochako couldn't wait to see everyone like the people who had hurt Hime get absolutely obliterated. Dabi sighed, wrapping his arms a little tighter around his bird. Dabi, look, everyone hates the commission now. He laughed lightly, breath-ruffling blonde hair. They sure do. These people don't even know you, and they're rooting for you. Takami tilted his head back with a smile. Too bad they can't possibly compete with my biggest fan and supporter. Dabi raised an eyebrow. No one can compete with Little Green. A taloned hand smacked him lightly, and he snorted. Watch the claws. I don't want to be shish kebab. If you die, you die. Cold. Well, since you're so hot, someone has to be. They both paused, and Takami turned as red as his feathers. I mean, you run hot. Because of your quirk. You're warm. Temperature-wise, you're hot. Dabi buried his laughter in his boyfriend's hair. Don't worry, Birdie. I know you just love me for being your space heater. Takami huffed. Whatever. Come here, punk. Dabi grinned and leaned down. It was a good day for everyone. Everyone but the commission, of course.
Notes.
Smiley face. Chapter 21. A blonde, a nervous wreck, and a fairy walk into a bar.
Summary.
Or rather, a library.
Notes.
See the end of the chapter for notes. It was break day, where they let the public and their friends rest and ruminate on things or whatever. Nezu was still busy with politics stuff, which meant Izuku, officially a teenager as of a couple months ago, was free to roam UA to do as he wished. Of course, teachers and upperclassmen had long since gotten used to him, not that anyone has ever told the media. They made it a joke to not tell anyone until they came to school. People would sometimes stop him and ask if he was supposed to be there, and he distracted them by talking about their quirks. He does a profile on the school as a whole with every year for practice, and then smiling and leaving when they're confused. Next time he sees that student, he just waves and continues whatever he's doing. Most people don't ask twice, but it is a pretty good prank to the upperclassmen, so Izuku let it go. He was sitting in the library with a game of Connect 4. It wasn't a difficult game, per se, but he was playing against himself, not anyone else, so it was pretty challenging anyway. He always knew what yellow was planning, but he also knew what red was planning. It was a horrible cycle of trying to trap himself and eluding his own traps. Hey there, little guy. What are you doing? He looked up from his almost stalemate game to see what looked to be a first-year, blonde hair, blue eyes. Doing a mental catalog, he pinned him. Oh, hello Mirio, Togata. The boy just laughed. Wow. The rumors were true. You're pretty funny. Izuku grinned and pet his head. It's not often people call that funny. Mirio nodded sagely, fighting to keep back a grin. I knew what to expect coming in, but I'm wondering if you figured out my quirk. What makes you think I haven't just looked at the files? You're playing Connect 4 against yourself something. Tells me you like a challenge. Izuku giggled. Yeah, you're right. But I still watch the entrance exams, so I think I have a pretty good idea. The older boy sat across from him at the table, still smiling. Do your worst. Well, he started, it's some form of intangibility. Your clothes slip off when you use it full body, so in the entrance exam you tended not to do that, but that means you can also make certain parts of your body tangible or not. If you had a costume or clothing made out of your own DNA like your hair, you could avoid that issue and your clothes would work with your quirk instead of against it. I'm curious, though, can you only pass through solids, or can you pass through liquids and gas as well? Mirio blinked and burst out laughing, getting himself shushed by the librarian. Sorry, he yelled sheepishly before turning back to Izuku. Crazy. I call it permeation, and pretty much everything you said was correct. And I can pass through liquids and gases too, which means I can't breathe while my torso is permeable, and I can't see while my head is. Pretty annoying. Izuku hummed. How long can you hold your breath? I know air will literally pass out of your lungs, but if you can get better at absorbing oxygen before activating your quirk, you'll probably last longer.
Oh.
Mirio, are you making friends without us? Izuku blinked as a blue-haired girl floated over, trailed by an incredibly nervous boy with pointed ears. Mirio laughed quietly. No, I'm just talking to the UA cryptid. She pouted. That's worse. Real friends hunt cryptids together. The quiet boy glanced nervously at Izuku and murmured something the younger boy couldn't hear. The girl beamed, floating above him still. Hi there, cryptid. I'm Hato Nijire, but you should totally call me Nijire-chan. It's nice to meet you. This guy is Amajiki Tamaki. He and Mirio have been friends for ages. Izuku waved at the shy boy and turned back to Nijire. How does your quirk let you fly? I thought it was just energy spirals you could send out. She giggled. Just like the stories. It's something I learned how to do with practice. He nodded slowly. Say, you three are in the hero course, right? First years. They all nodded. Why do you want to be a hero? Mirio chuckled. I guess I got really inspired by All Might. I want to use my power to save a lot of people. Everyone if I can, but I'm just one guy, you know? But anyway, I want to save people with a smile. Nijire hummed, perching on the edge of the table and swinging her feet. I guess I want to be a hero to all the little girls like me who were told they'd be nothing more than a pretty face. Also to punch the meanies. Amajiki hid behind Mirio, but Izuku could hear his quiet mutter in the still air of the library. I want to protect people and give them confidence. Izuku smiled. All good answers. Have you been keeping up with the recent news about the hero commission? Nijire sighed. It was a total bummer when it turned out they're kind of terrible, but by the time that journalist posted the article, I had already gotten my acceptance letter to UA. God, it seems like so long ago, but it was only a few months, huh? Mirio nodded. I still want to be a hero, but I hope things change. Nijire leaned forward. What about you? Why were you the cryptid who's been here for so many years? Izuku grinned and slid the catcher out on the Connect 4 grid, making the pieces clatter to the table. Beat me in a game and I'll answer any questions you have. Amajiki played 2 games, Mirio 7 and Nijire 11, but none of them were able to get even close to beating him. Hard to believe you're 2 years younger than us, Nijire grumbled after her 9th consecutive loss. You're playing on the 5th dimension compared to us. Izuku just laughed and said there would be more opportunities to beat him in a game. He'd even let them pick if they wanted. Mirio perked up at that. Tic-tac-toe. Izuku readily agreed. Mirio never lost, but he was never able to get more than a draw.
Dude.
This is ridiculous. Old maid? He figured out the odd card out on the second round. Go fish? His memory was impeccable. He knew what everyone had and was a master at card counting to guess for the cards they hadn't called yet. War? It was a game of mostly luck anyway, but he still won. Rock, paper, scissors? He knew human psychology like no other. It wasn't even a contest. Finally, Mirio challenged him to a thumb wrestling match. Izuku was fast, but Mirio was considerably bigger and bulkier, and he managed to pin down Izuku's thumb. The three of them crowed, the librarian long since giving up trying to keep them quiet. Izuku would bring him some cookies later to make up for it. All right, Mirio. You can ask me one question. Why do you want to be a hero? Izuku blinked in surprise. What leads you to believe I want to be a hero? Mirio shrugged. You care a lot, I can tell. You have a lot of drive, and you wanted to know about us, so I want to know about you. If you don't want to be a hero, then I guess I can change my question to what do you want to do with your life? It was not the question Izuku had been expecting, but it was a pretty good one. What did he want? In some sense, he did still want to be a hero, just not one with a license, not one under the commission and the current government. I guess. I want a world where people aren't judged because of a genetic mutation, where no one is cast aside because of a power or lack of one, and people aren't forced into bubbles when they turn 4, all other possibilities going away. I want a world where instead of people needing to turn to villainy to get by, we have programs in place to get them the help they need. I want reform. He paused before smiling. And it's already working. They looked confused, but he slid the Connect 4 box back onto the shelf. He had taken it from and stretched. I'm pretty sure your free PRD ended about half an hour ago, but I give you guys a pass. If your teacher asks, just say you were with me. Wait. The quiet worry made Izuku stop and turn back to Amajiki. What's your name? Oh, he hadn't ever introduced himself. Izuku, he smiled. The UA cryptid. He ducked out of the room before they could reply and hauled himself into an air vent, closing it just as they left, not seeing him in the otherwise completely empty hallway. On a whim, he followed them back to class, which was with Midnight. Midnight-sensei, dash. I know where you were. Nezu already informed me. Don't get caught up in any of that boy's schemes. She snorted at their confused looks. He's Nezu's protege and friend. Between the two of them, there's no one smarter in the building, and you'd be wise to remember that. Now come on, you're holding up class. Izuku slid silently through the vents to plop down in Nezu's office, sighing in contentment at the cushy beanbag chair directly beneath the vent. Nezu wasn't in, and Aizawa opened one eye from the other beanbag chair in the room, before slipping it closed again. He liked them, they were good people. Nezu got elected to office, and everything changed. Suddenly, laws were getting passed that before had no chance of getting through committee. He gave perfectly logical arguments that no one could refute, and they were forced to vote accordingly. Mutants, weak quirks, and the quirkless were suddenly recognized. There was a hard crackdown on schools to ensure anti-discrimination laws were actually being followed, and teachers and policemen were hired and fired rapidly. On top of that, new articles came out from the now quite famous, yet still anonymous Green Bean, dragging down sidekicks and any heroes under the top 50, holding them accountable according to the letter of the law, and other journals took up the mantle, cracking down on some of the top 50 as well. No one was quite sure why he never went after the top 50, but other journals were happy for the publicity from an untapped source. People started to question heroes on their own, and more importantly, the Hero and Public Safety Commission. How could they let all these dastardly deeds go unnoticed and unchecked for so long? They kept releasing statements that they had no idea their heroes were doing this, but after the third or fourth one, and the story of Kigo constantly in the forefront of people's minds, people started to ignore them. They were calling for a complete overhaul of the commission staff and leadership, and some called for a complete dismantling of the entire thing. They immediately pointed fingers at the well-loved politician and non-practicing hero, Nezu, but he kindly pointed out that if they abolished a fundamental part of the government, unsavory characters would swoop in the anarchy. Still, reforms would be on the way, and funding would be stripped from them. The next budget passed by the government had commission funds cut in half, and they had to lay off many workers and close most of their private departments. Sejito Ranyu resigned as president. Soon, it was the year when Izuku and his friends would go to UA, but on the day of the entrance exam, they had other plans in store than going to school. They were all guaranteed spots if they wanted them anyway. All for one, sir. Speak. They're making their move. Then we shall crush them like the bugs they are. All for One has begun mobilizing his final forces. We must make the push to wipe him out. By my estimations, we should have our final battle here, in this district. Very good. Let us prove we're not afraid of the boogeyman, shall we? Kuji held up a finger serenely and smiled as a sparrow landed. He was spending the day in the park with his friends, final preparations in place. The bird on his finger tweeted and he nodded, typing with his phone, also in the hand with the bird, and stroking the little messenger's head. Everyone's phones pinged, and Izuku beamed at the boy. Great. I'll relay this location to our coalition of heroes. Dobby snorted. Spymaster strikes again. God, what are you going to do when this is all over and the world is under Zoo's thumb? Our lives will be so boring. I dunno. Hime giggled. We have to start with Japan. We'll do it, duh, but it's gonna take some time for the world, you know? Katsuki crunched a chip. I bet 2 years. Cheiko perked up, fingers in Hime's hair stopping for a moment as she broke into a grin. 1.5 years. Hitoshi didn't move from where his arm was covering his eyes. 6 months. Nito scoffed. It's 183 countries, not counting Japan. I doubt he can get in 6 months, even with both him and Nezu. 1 year, minimum. Shoto hummed. For months. Did you even listen to me? Izuku chuckled. Come on, guys, it took us like 4 years to get Japan. You are being way too confident. Plus, we need to show that our system works before we try to impose it widespread. Nezu sighed. Perhaps when you officially become Emperor of Earth, you'll actually be an adult. Yeah, but Zook'll still be short forever. Izuku shoved the explosive boy, who squawked and threw a chip that got lodged in Izuku's thick green curls, and everyone devolved into laughter. Even after all this time, Izuku had not grown much, barely hitting 5 feet, and it was a constant source of jokes. Izuku sighed, leaning back with a grin and raising his bottle of sparkly juice they all had. To the future. Kuji smiled and raised his own bottle. To the future.
Notes.
To the future indeed. I don't think we have many chapters left. Next chapter will be the final uprising and squashing of opposing parties on both sides, and then I'm thinking 2 to 3 chapters tops until we have full control or the planet. Chapter 22. A Staged Confrontation. Summary. The opposition gets removed.
Notes.
See the end of the chapter for notes. All for One was feeling confident. To be entirely fair, that was his normal state. He had a lot to be confident about. He was about to wipe out the foolish competition and fully take over the underground. And then?
Japan.
Of course, the groundwork had been partially laid out for him, with both the politician Nezu and the journalist Greenbean. All for One still didn't know who the journalist really was, but then again, he hadn't put much work into finding out, so all in good time. Today was the day he finally wiped those minor gangs and bygone Yakuza off the map, once and for all. They had a lot of bravery to oppose him for so long, chipping away at his pawns, but he still had his bishops, his rooks, and his knights to destroy them. And Kurojiiri was ensuring his king was well protected. Even should All for One take a solid blow today, his weaknesses exploited, there was still young Tamura, who would be fine to take over his empire. Still, he would not be taken out by the worthless rabble they would be bringing to this battle. He had been chipping away at their forces ever since he heard they were rising against him. They were foolish, and they would pay the price. Akai Itami had the privilege of being third in command. Really, that overhaul kid was second in command, but Itami was the liaison for the gangs to the Yakuza, since most of them trusted him at this point. He didn't like to sacrifice men, but he had volunteers to go kamikaze at the enemy. They knew they would die, but they were going to take out as many people as they could on the way. So here they stood, at the final battlefield, with their strongest members. He knew they had weakened him significantly, and hopefully he would be underestimating their strength, but this was going to be a brutal battle, and they all knew it. He watched hardened gang members looking at pictures before tucking them into their shirts, eyes bright. For many, this was the end, but they knew that those who survived would be free, and they would have control of the underground. The political scene had shifted significantly, and for once in their lives, they felt accepted by society. Now all they had to do was remove the last cancer on the underground. It was only 200 years overdue. They packed up the picnic, and half of the group waved their goodbyes and their good lucks. Kigo, Dabi, Izuku, Kuji, and Meza moved out. Kigo was still disguised, but occasionally someone would give him a funny look and he'd wink. The article had been read at least 5 times by every single person in Japan, and there was a forum page online dedicated to Kigo sightings, so people had a pretty decent idea of what to look for by now, even with the red herrings the gang would put on the site every once in a while. The train ride was quiet, Izuka humming to himself as he checked the Quark forums. The call for welfare programs was spreading, as per Green Beans. Last article, and soon enough, Nezu would propose it to the committees and their popularity would rise. They were very, very close. Come on, little green, we're here. Time to watch the underbelly crumble. Kuji called down several birds and spoke to them in quiet tones before nodding and releasing them. Armies in place, he signed. And birds are set to mingle. Izuka hummed and got out his phone, checking the locations of the Hero Coalition. And we should have hero arrivals within half an hour. Plenty of time for them to wipe each other out. They all climbed up a 3-story building about a block away from the site of the fight when a shockwave sent them reeling. It started. Izuku grinned. He pulled out a tablet and booted up the app connected to the various cameras on the bird agents to watch. He didn't take pleasure in watching human death, and he wished this could have been avoided, but he just needed to wait for the heads of the snakes to be cut off, and then the heroes could move in without fear. All for One and Overhaul were dangerous, and he didn't need his coalition getting more injured than they had to. Maruko was mad. She had to sit back and wait for the signal, but she liked the little kid. He kicked Major, but so she was willing to wait. She was of the opinion that even if this all-for-one guy could steal quirks, she could kick his but before it became a problem. They had spent the last several weeks destroying his factories, helping out the other side where they could, and they didn't seem so tough. Then she watched him punch and destroy 100 people. Right, okay, there was a reason the boss was the boss. Then the shitty golden eyes bird mask boy showed up and effed up All for One's forces by himself, and suddenly it was a Mexican standoff between Overhaul and All for One. There was a huge but explosion, and then they were given the green light to move in. Maruko grinned wickedly and punched her hand. Time to F them up. She dashed in, knocking people out left and right, starting on All for One's side, until she was face to face with a particular guy. She paused, narrowing her eyes. Something about this guy was familiar. Hey, who are you? The man startled. Akai Atami, Silver Snakes. Maruko grunted. Ah, you. Boss said you're fine. Get your guys and get out of here. This fight is over. He almost protested, super confused at who the boss was, but sent out his own alert and cleared out quick. Boss had liked the guy, said he ran a tight ship and was a good example for gangs everywhere, so if he was spotted, to let him go. Done and done. She heard a guttural scream and looked up just in time to see a misty guy and a FING teenager looking upset by something before Ed's shot knocked them both the F out. Man, dude was pretty fun to hang around. He really took nobody's sheet, and Maruko could respect that. The boss would decide what to do with those guys. They just had a job to do. They were the only heroes who the boss trusted and had reached out to, which was super flattering, but of course people would trust Rumi, especially with Kigo backing her up. She knew the kid. They had both been a part of the same program, with her a few years older, and she was glad to see him looking good. He hadn't had the fierceness she did to put up with the commission's bullshit, so she was glad the boss had gotten him out. The coalition was made up of several heroes. The Pussycats, Ed Shot, Gang Orca, Best Jeanist, Ryukyu, Fat Gum, Ms. Joke, Mr. Brave, Kasajiriman, and of course, Maruko and the UA teachers. All people who managed to avoid the scandals that a lot of heroes had, and hand-picked by the boss. Rumi had no qualms about the fact that hero society as they knew it was going to come crumbling down, but she knew the boss would take care of them. He was a real sweetheart for being so ruthless to his enemies. Speaking of, he was coming down the battlefield right now, carried by none other than Kigo. "Hey birdie," she crowed. "Taxi service?" He snorted. "Nice to see you too, Rumi." It was good to see him with his wings fully spread. There were little gold flecks and stripes she hadn't seen before, and his eyes were sharper. His talons certainly were, on both his hands and feet, and he looked way more vibrant and dangerous, like a real bird of prey. The boss looked around the area, with a sad smile. "So much destruction, do you think Cementos would be willing to help?" She snorted. "He's wrapped around your finger like the rest of the UA staff, and is probably living in constant fear of you. I'm going to say yes." One of the criminals on the ground coughed and looked up at the kid. Who are you?" The boss hummed. "With 1,000 lies and a good disguise, hit M right between the eyes. You probably know me as Green Bean, and I'm the one who orchestrated this whole fight. The underground needed its key players taken out, so they didn't oppose me and my friend. We want a non-hostile takeover, and we can't have that with such strong opposition, so All for One and Yakuza both had to take each other out. And they did, just like planned." The man had fallen back unconscious halfway through, and the boss sighed. "Oh well, I imagine the news crews will be showing up soon, and I want to clear out by then. Rumi, can you handle the cleanup?" She laughed sharply. "Course, boss. Police should be here to arrest them soon, and we have enough capture specialists to keep them contained. You need anything else?" He shook his head. "No, but thank you." Kigo waved her goodbye, and then took off with the boss, bringing him back to a distant roof, where 2 other people waited. Rumi watched the birds swoop around and snorted. No doubt, the spymaster had let the boss watch the whole battle with his bird drones. The spymaster was a good kid. She hummed to herself, finding herself muttering the words of the song the boss had quoted. "Show me how to lie, you're getting better all the time, and turning all against the one is an art that's hard to teach." Another clever word sets off an unsuspecting herd. The coalition made a name for themselves, working in teams to help anyone and everyone, denouncing the commission as they did so. With public opinion already against them, and favorite and well-loved heroes actively protesting against them, it wasn't long before the entire government branch was disbanded. People didn't know what to do about licenses now, but Nezu answered the calls of his constituents, and soon the law was passed. As long as your quirk was not harming yourself or others, you could use it in public. Coupled with the anti-discrimination laws, quirk use became incredibly common, and quirk counselors and analysts became a highly sought-after job. People were discovering so many new things about their quirks, and the industry couldn't keep up until Nezu instituted a government program that offered free quirk consultations. Suddenly, the workload was divided and lightened, and people could make an appointment and see a specialist within a week. Other welfare programs started popping up, including a universal income. They had all this disposable money from disbanding the commission, that everyone had supplementary income. At first, people worried that this would hurt the economy, but with more money to spend, people bought more things and workers got paid more, so there was more money for them to buy things, and the economy had never been more robust. Prices didn't rise, since there was higher demand to purchase the supply. Other countries started taking notice. "Nezu," a reporter asked, "what are you trying to achieve with your progressive and almost socialist policies?" "Why, a Zutopia. Don't you mean a utopia?"
No.
Nezu had only smiled at every other question related to why he was calling it a Zutopia, but the internet theorized it was a pun based on his name. They were half right. Izuka's friends knew that it was also a pun based on Izuka's name, using their shared syllable to allude to how they were working together, one in the spotlight, the other in the shadows. Izuka blushed any time someone brought it up. In another 6 months, Nezu was elected the Prime Minister of Japan, and everything seemed normal, like nothing had changed, government-wise. He had always been in charge. Izuka knew, but now he officially held the title. The public could not be more happy. Welfare programs were off the charts. Quirk use was so common it became just another aspect of life instead of a prominent feature, and Japan slowly became one of the wealthiest countries and best places to live. It was child's play for Izuku to establish a foothold in China and Korea. 1 year, Nito muttered to himself. 1 year until it's all his. Izuku shook his head. Ours, Niken. I couldn't have done this without you guys. Chieko giggled. Say, can I be in charge of the space program? Izuku lit up. I knew I was forgetting something. Let me message Nezu. Hitoshi sighed. We're going to be living on the moon this time next year, aren't we? Only if Chieko works fast. Jesus Christ. Katsuki snorted. You're telling me. Sheet up, Zuko. No. That's the opposite of what we're trying to do. He rolled his eyes. Yeah. Go finish establishing yourself in Asia already. Izuku beamed. Okay. Notes. AFO is dead. Overhaul is dead. Shiggy and Kurogiri are in a psych ward. Y'all were like, save them, but it was not in the cards, so they get a one-line explanation in universe. And we have full control over Japan, and also where the title came from. Next time we'll see the epilogue, and then, hot diamond, Zoo is over. I remember when we started by playing Terraforming Mars, that was ages ago. As always, here is a poll for what I should write next. You can totally select multiple options. See you soon for the epilogue. Chapter 23. An Epilogue. Summary. Thank you for this ride, smiley face.
Notes.
See the end of the chapter for notes. Katsuki kicked the ground. I hate this entire den continent. Hitoshi snorted. Blasty, I hate to break it to you, but the entire continent of Europe is as diverse as Zuka's knowledge. Katsuki scowled. Doesn't matter. Every DMN country we've been to has a CKD major D-. Why the hell did Zuka send me on a diplomatic mission? I dunno, he shrugged, but they loved you in Hungary. Hungarians have taste. You just like their goulash. It's good as sheet. Get off my D-I bags. Pretty sure they were ready to elect you president based solely on how much goulash you ate. How much of the paprika have you eaten so far? I have no idea what you're talking about. Hitoshi looked at him incredulously. Katz, I saw you purchasing the Hungarian paprika. You aren't slick. I'm the king of stealth, and it is in your nature to be loud. I'm saving it for when we get to France, since I know that's going to drive me up the wall. Ah yes, French cuisine, wine and butter, and not a drop of heat for poor dear Explodo hands. Katsuki shoved the boy into a bush. F off. Let's finish up FING Germany. We're already behind schedule. And that is why you get sent with me on my diplomatic missions. F off, I bags. Kuji and Nezu had one last stop in Madagascar. Between the strong and stoic Nezu and the animal friend Kuji, Africa had been willing to work with Japan and the coalition, and every country but the large island was already on board. Izuku and Nezu had been told, and their people were already moving in to help with the transition, offerings and gifts in hand, following in the wake of the 16-year-olds. Hey, do you remember that pre-work movie Madagascar? Kuji nodded with a grimace. I really do not want to find a secret kingdom of lemurs, to be entirely honest with you, he signed, and I definitely do not want to deal with zoo animals. They're always a little weird after captivity. Nezu snorted. Had your fill of the African savannah? Well, Kuji sighed as his hands moved. Don't get me wrong, I love animals, and it was really cool talking to them in the wild. But the drama in the lion prides is ridiculous. Literally everyone hates the lions, including the other lions, and the males are just ugh. At least you can have a conversation with the female lions. The males just talk about themselves unless it seems like you're challenging them, and then they get aggressive. It's terrible. Much nicer to have a conversation with the others. Don't forget the hyenas. Kuji snorted. Hyenas were actually funny. They told very good jokes, even if you didn't get them. Something about animal humor doesn't resonate with me as well. Lost in translation, I guess. Kuji sighed and stretched. Last one, then we're good, right? Nezu shrugged. Izuku might want her help in South America, since you were so helpful in Oceania, but that's just for the checkups, so we'll get a break after this. Plus, the anniversary party is coming up soon. Oh yeah, Kuji hummed. It's already been a year, huh? Ochako and Hime sat back and watched as Melissa herded people around to various stations, the universal translators working nonstop to make sure communications were up. She jabbered in Hindi to a pair of siblings and they nodded, all grins, before grabbing things to work on. She slumped beside them with a big sigh. "Don't worry, Millie," Hime giggled. "At the rate people keep pouring in, we'll be done in no time." The two blondes smiled at each other, and Ochako sighed contentedly. "One day, we're going to space. I can't wait." Melissa grinned. With every nation that joins the coalition, the scientists come pouring in. "I'm glad we converted Island to the space program only, because I hear from my dad that the labs in Japan and the States are starting to fill up too. It's incredible what people coming together can accomplish." A pink-haired girl bounded over, clutching a blueprint. "Melissa, Ochako, Himiko, I must have you look at this rocket design. I think I've cracked our resistance problem." Melissa immediately leaned over, eyes darting around, before she began beaming.
May.
"This is it. You've done it. Now with the Dalals working on the fuel and the Robins getting the materials in order, we can start building within the week." She wrapped the shorter girl up in her arms and spun her around, laughing. "Ochako, someone called. I need a gravity test."
"Coming," she called back.
She kissed Hime on the cheek before bounding away. Melissa pouted, setting May down. "I didn't get a kiss." May snorted and smacked her with her lips. "Come on, babes, we're going to space." Shudo shook out his frozen fingers and let his fire spread through his fingers, seeing Nito doing the same. How many more glaciers left? He unfolded the paper map they had been given and ticked off another.
Spot.
2 left, then we are done with Scandinavia. Nito sighed with a grin. "Did you read the article the other day? Apparently we're already feeling the effects." He hummed. "Storms have gone down significantly and ocean temperature is already leveling. Kuji was telling me the Florida reefs are projected to recover within the next 100 years. SCKS we let it get to this point, but glad we're doing something about it." Shudo nodded, looking at their vast team of people with ice and earth quirks. They were one of the many environmental teams that were going around the globe, regrowing forests, refreezing glaciers, and cleaning up water. They had been at it for almost a year now, and finally effects were starting to show. "The reunion is next week, right?" He nodded. "We'll be back in time." Nito snorted. "You just want to give your family all those Scandinavian souvenirs you've been hoarding. Are you sure they'll like the replica Viking helmets?" "Natsuo is rather fond of Vikings, and my mother has Scandinavian lineage. It's very, very far back, but Izuka thinks it has something to do with her ice powers." "Fair enough, he's rarely wrong." Shudo nodded and smiled softly. Dobby and his fiancée were having a grand old time in North America. The continent had long since joined the coalition, enjoying the benefits already, but it was nice to do routine checks, make sure they didn't need anything. Not everyone was great about asking for help yet. Plus, David said he had something for them, which Dobby was counting on. They strode into the labs, passing scientists scrambling around and talking to each other, comparing notes back and forth. Already there had been 3 different breakthroughs in both quirk science and general health. "Ah, Dobby," David Shield called. "You two made it. Come, I have it right here." Takami had feathers listening to every single conversation he found even remotely interesting. He had grown incredibly fond of science and loved to learn more, even if, he could just tell Little Green something exciting when they came back. Plus, he was still trying to figure out how to break the sound barrier. Dobby strolled up to the cluttered desk of David and snorted. "Geez, Doc, have you heard of organization? How do you find anything?" "ADHD. Everything is perfectly in its place, I can assure you. Now here, I am and forever will be your favorite adopted uncle ever." He tossed the young adult a full bodysuit. It was made of an incredibly thin material that was no doubt bullet and stab-proof on top of doing what it was intended to. That right there, the scientist grinned, is thin enough to give you full protection from your quirk. The fire will just appear on the other side of it, and the fabric will keep you perfectly cool, or hot, if you're using the cold flames. Dobby groaned. "Who told you?" "I wanted it to be a surprise." Takami laughed sheepishly. "Sorry, babe, didn't want you messing up your new gift immediately." I am hurt and offended that you think I could destroy one of David's things so easily. David shrugged. It's protected both ways anyway. Goes up to your neck, comes with gloves and boots in case you want to go flying with Kigo. The bird in question cooed. Babe, we can go flying together. I don't have to carry you the entire time. Like you don't enjoy that, Dobby snorted. Don't lie. Takami pretended to consider for a few seconds before shrugging with a sheet-eating grin. Mae, come on, bird brain. We gotta be back in Japan tomorrow. Izuku. He looked up to see his first friend and grinned. Nezu, the Prime Minister of Japan, chuckled. Yes, my friend. I do believe you have lost track of the time. Izuku looked down at his watch and winced.
Oops.
Thanks, Nezu. They walked out together, one standing at 5 feet, the other at almost 3, to join their friends in the park. To an outsider who hadn't been in Japan these last 3 years, it would seem strange. The Prime Minister walking with a teenager to a gathering of other random teenagers and a scattering of adults, but most people saw it for what it was. The ruler of the world gathering his old friends to get together, after sending them across the globe, and the Prime Minister of Japan at his side. Oh, people knew the 16-year-old was the one in charge. There was no doubt at this point. They saw him and his friends, walking around and talking to people, gathering opinions and making dreams reality. They saw pictures of his friends walking the streets of the countries that joined the coalition in the next week. They heard the calls go out for scientists to come together and pool knowledge for the advancement of humanity. And they were glad for it. But to Izuku, he was just having a day where all his friends were back, gathering in one place to celebrate all they've accomplished together. Nito had been right, in the end. It hadn't taken nearly as long for the rest of the world to fall in line. Sure, Izuku and Nezu showing up to the summit of world leaders had turned some heads, but they all left that meeting with an impending sense of finality. He would be coming for them, and it would be best for everyone if they just joined the coalition. And now was the day of a picnic. Izuku looked at all his friends and beamed. They had come so far and done so much. Shudo was smiling with his family that were having a mock Viking battle, ill-fitting helmets adorning their heads as it was boys versus girls. The girls were definitely winning. Hitoshi was catching up with Kuij and Mezu, back from Africa and with fun stories to tell, if the animated hand gestures were anything to go by, and Katsuki was chasing Ochako around, gravity gone, and explosions sending him flying through the air while she dodged, chatting with Kigo in between ducks. Nito was with his cousin, catching up after so long apart. Mirio, Nijire, and Tamaki were there too, with Shuichi and a few more of the UA staff. It was still an incredibly popular school, best in the nation, and Aizawa was a good principal, keeping those numbers high. UA had the highest graduation rate of any school on the continent. Everyone, Melissa, an addition from 3 years ago, with Island being the first to join the coalition, gently tapped a spoon against her glass. We have something really important to say. She paused for a moment before breaking out into a grin. The first rocket has cleared testing stages, and we can now send people as far as Venus and Mars. Cheers went up, including from other passers-by in the park. Space travel had been cast aside when quirks first started showing up, but now with scientists collaborating everywhere, the field was taken back up and expanded, better than ever before. And Ochako beamed. I finished astronaut training. Turns out my quirk is good for more than keeping Explodey airborne. There were laughs all around, and Katsuki flipped her the bird from where his legs were hooked around a tree to keep him close by. The environmental teams are good to break, Shudo murmured, and conservation efforts are going well. The climate is stabilizing. Izuku grinned. Shudo, remember the tests we did on whether or not your ice needs water or if it manifests its own? I recall. I might have a mission for you later if you're up for it.
Oi.
Cheeks. Let me down. I got something to say. She snorted and pressed her fingers together, letting the boy flop to the ground. He brushed himself off and stalked over to his bag before bringing out a massive crock-pot. I made goulash. Hitoshi burst out laughing, clutching his sides. You were saving it for the anniversary party, really? You didn't want to keep all the paprika for yourself? F off, eyebags. I just need everyone else to see the joy that is Hungarian spicy goulash. And Anyone who doesn't like it? Well, more for fing me. Most people couldn't eat it, it was so spicy, but Katsuki savored every bite, growling at Hitoshi when the purple-haired boy tried to swipe a spoonful directly from his bowl, as if he didn't have a perfectly good bowl himself. The party went on for hours, pulling out card games and board games alike. They even broke out a game of Ultimate Werewolf, letting Izuka spin them the tales of Miller's Hollow and how there were beasts prowling among them. At the end of the party, after it was all cleaned up, Izuka sat on a bench next to Nezu, looking at the moon. You know, he hummed, "We could actually terraform the planets. Like that old game from 8 years ago, you know?" Nezu hummed in agreement. It would be an interesting challenge, but with our expertise, we should be able to do it. Except this time, Izuka grinned. We won't be competing to see who can do more. No, you will have free reign of Mars, my friend. Izuka blinked.
What?
You don't want to. It is not that I do not want to, but I find myself thinking you would be better at it. He chuckled. Perhaps that's why I became a teacher. But you're Nezu, and you're Izuku. He smiled softly. And what a marvelous thing to be, indeed.